Chapter 1994. In today's situation, many spirit islands had suffered because of the Formless Palace's invasion, and many cultivators had died tragically. All of this was blamed on the Wuxia galaxy. As such, no matter how many enemies died under the sun, it would not appease the public's anger. Only by killing the enemies under the sun could the Wuxia galaxy's reputation be restored. That was why Yuan Sei used the fire gourd directly. He wanted to end the battle quickly. Within this short period of time, Shang Qingyu could no longer avoid the fire snake's pursuit. He kept activating the power of his Dharma treasures, but no matter what the quality of the Dharma treasures were, they would quickly melt and shatter when touched by the small fire snake. The cultivators who were watching the battle from all directions finally understood the horror of this Dharma treasure. Some of them even shouted with righteous indignation, cheering for Yuan Sei. The scene was unusually lively. Not only was the small fire snake terrifying, but it also seemed to leave behind dark marks wherever it passed. It was as if the space was burned, and there was an extremely dangerous aura coming from those marks. It was obvious that Shang Qingyu was aware of this, so he tried his best to avoid coming into contact with the marks. However, this was exactly what Yuan Sei wanted. He controlled the little fire snake to constantly block Shang Qingyu's movements, causing the space he had to move to become smaller and smaller. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before Shang Qingyu would no longer have any space to move. When that time came, as long as he was touched by the little fire snake, he would either die or be injured. Something's wrong. Behind Yuan Sei, Mu Qing's cultivation partner, Zhou Yi, suddenly said. Mu Qing was originally looking at the situation on the battlefield with excitement. When she heard her cultivation partner's words, she was stunned. What's wrong? Look at them. Do they look worried at all? As Zhou Yi spoke, he gestured in the direction of the other Rizhao from the Formless Palace. Mu Qing quickly turned her head and saw that the other Rizhao looked as if they were watching a good show. They were not worried about Shang Qingyu's situation at all. In this situation, either they did not care about Shang Qingyu's life or the fire gourd is indeed powerful. This special fire that has been nurtured for many years is indeed not something that can be blocked by ordinary means. I'm not as good as it. Shang Qingyu's voice suddenly sounded. Yuan Sei's brows furrowed as he vaguely realized that something was amiss. However, he couldn't afford to be distracted at this moment. His spiritual sense surged again, and the small fire snake instantly straightened its body before shooting toward Shang Qingyu, who had nowhere to run. But even at the critical moment of life and death, Shang Qingyu was not afraid at all. He reached out and grabbed at the air, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Lu Yi could clearly see that it wasn't a sword at all, it was just a sword light. However, the moment this sword light appeared, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, as if a great danger was about to befall him. Furthermore, the feeling that this sword light gave him was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Merak sword energy. Yuan Sei exclaimed in surprise. Good eye. Shang Qingyu laughed loudly. Since I knew that there was a treasure in your myriad phenomenon galaxy, how could I have come here without any preparations? If you want to kill me, then you'll be buried with me. As he said that, his expression turned fierce, and the sword qi in his hand suddenly shot toward Yuan Sei. In an instant, the sword qi split into two into four into 8. A rain of swords enveloped Yuan Sei and the others. The expressions of the 6 sons of the Wuxia galaxy changed drastically as they channeled their dermic powers. Even so, the 6 of them did not feel safe at all. This was because the Merak sword was a treasure, and the sword qi it produced could be considered the power of a treasure as well. It was not inferior to the special fire that the fire gourd had nurtured for many years. With this sudden change in the situation, it was clearly a situation where both sides suffered great losses. Shang Qingyu would definitely die if he couldn't withstand the special fire, but the 6 sons of the myriad phenomenon sea would probably be killed on the spot by the sword qi of the Merak sword. In the end, Yuan Sei did not dare to perish together with his enemy. Shang Qingyu went crazy, but he couldn't go crazy with him. 6 for 1, no matter how he thought about it, was not a good deal. Therefore, he did not hesitate at all and instantly recalled the special fire. The small fire snake suddenly spread out and enveloped the 6 of them. The endless rain of swords came crashing down. The fire shattered and returned to the fire gourd in Yuan Du's hand. The 6 figures were revealed, and all of them looked frightened, especially Yuan Se. His face was extremely pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. He was clearly injured. Oh! Shang Qingyu raised his eyebrows and smirked. He looked at Yuan Se with disdain. So I'm still alive. Thank you for showing mercy. Yuan Se's lips parted, but he could not say a word. He had experienced Shang Qingyu's madness. Looks like I won? Shang Qingyu spoke again. Yuan Se did not say a word, but he had to admit that Shang Qingyu had won the bet just now. As the special fire was destroyed and its spirituality was damaged, he could not use it again in a short period of time. Without the fire gourd, they could not stop the enemy unless they were determined to fight with their lives on the line. Why aren't you thanking the friends of the Myriad Phenomenon Galaxy for their hospitality? We're about to leave, but they still came to see us off. How courteous! Shang Qingyu turned to instruct the cultivators of the Formless Palace. On the island of Versatility, there was a burst of laughter and laughter. Some people even shouted that the Myriad Phenomenon Galaxy was hospitable and that they would come again next time. Yuan Se was already mentally unstable. After being provoked, he immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. The others also had ugly expressions. However, there was nothing they could do in the current situation. Yuan Se had been defeated, and the number of sunshine on their side was less than the enemy's. If another conflict broke out, the Myriad Phenomenon Galaxy would be at a disadvantage. If only Jiao Yan was here. Mu Qing clenched her fists. Her face was full of humiliation. If Jiao Yan was here, with her strength and the power of the treasure in her hand, Shang Qingyu would not be able to be so arrogant. Unfortunately, Jiao Yan had left the Wanxiang Galaxy not too long ago for another place. She did not care much about this at first, but after Yuan Du joined forces with the Black Cloud Alliance to attack the Three-World Island, she realized that Jiao Yan's departure was not a coincidence. Yuan Du had lured her away. Mu Qing's eyes reddened as she was filled with helplessness and grievances that she had nowhere to vent. A Yu Yao flew out from the island of Versatility and reported to Shang Qingyu. Third Palace Master, the array has been set up. It can be opened at any time. Please ask for instructions. Shang Qingyu grinned. Then let's go home. Then he turned to look at Yuan Se and the others. My friends, you don't have to send me off. On the island of Versatility, countless cultivators from the Formless Palace roared with laughter. The array began to hum and the door was about to open. Yuan Se and the others could only watch helplessly. However, at this moment, Shang Qingyu suddenly turned his head and looked in a certain direction. A figure slowly walked over from that direction. He wasn't very old and looked to be in his 20s. There was a long saber hanging from his waist. What was even more noteworthy was that he was holding a golden toad in his arms. Shang Qingyu scanned with his divine telekinesis and found that this person should be a weapon cultivator who had just become a sunshine cultivator not long ago. As his aura had not completely stabilized, Shang Qingyu immediately looked away and did not care much. However, who would have thought that this new sunshine cultivator, whom he did not care about at all, would say arrogantly, "You can go, but leave your things behind." Shang Qingyu was stunned for a moment. He looked at the newcomer again with a puzzled expression. Then he looked at Yuan Se. My friend, you should take care of your juniors. It would be bad if they cause any misunderstandings. He obviously thought that this new sunshine cultivator was from the Wanxiang Galaxy. Since ancient times, there were many people who were fearless. However, most of them did not live for long. Now that the Battle of the Wanxiang Sea had been settled, he did not want to cause any more trouble. He just wanted to retreat safely. Yuan Se glanced at Lu Yi and frowned. He did not expect that there would be another sunshine cultivator on the Wanxiang Sea. He shook his head slowly. This is not a sunshine cultivator from our galaxy. Oh! Shang Qingyu raised his eyebrows. Since he's not one of you, it shouldn't be a problem to kill him, right? Yuan Se did not speak. He did not notice Mu Qing's excited expression behind him. She did not expect Lu Yi of the Three-World Island to jump out at such a critical moment. A new sunshine cultivator was indeed not worthy of her attention. However, the pet beast in his arms was not ordinary. Mu Qing had seen with her own eyes how Lu Yi killed 2 sunshine cultivators from the Formless Palace. Those 2 sunshine cultivators were quite strong, but when they were hit by that strange golden light, they were instantly imprisoned and turned into fish on the chopping board. If it was him, Mu Qing suddenly looked forward to it. Given the current situation, the situation of their galaxy could not get any worse. Any change would not be a bad thing for their galaxy. What's wrong? Zhou Yi held her hand and could feel the change in her mood. He could not help but ask. There's a good show to watch, Mu Qing whispered. Zhou Yi was puzzled. Everyone here, except for her, did not know about the strange ability of the pet beast in Lu Ye's arms. Even Imo Wenli did not know about it. Previously, when he joined forces with He Yun to attack Ma Bin, he was so focused on Ma Bin that he did not notice anything else. Ying, kill him, Shang Qingyu ordered calmly. He did not need to personally deal with a new sunshine cultivator. Moreover, he controlled the Merak sword qi with his flesh and blood. Although he did not seem to be injured, he actually consumed a lot of energy. At this moment, even his soul was in severe pain. A petite girl suddenly walked out of the formation and went straight to Lu Yi. She should be the girl called Ying. Her aura was much more stable and strong than Lu Ye's. Conservatively speaking, she was at least in the middle stage of the Sunshine Realm. In terms of strength, she gave Lu Yi the feeling that she was about the same as Yuan Du. No one cared about this battle. Everyone in the Sunshine Realm felt that Ying had no chance of losing. That's what she thought too. Her small figure brandished a huge spear and attacked Lu Yi without saying a word. Lu Yi acted as if he did not see it. He also did not show any signs of channeling his magical power or defending himself. However, when Ying was not far away from him, a golden light suddenly flashed in his arms. Today, I have something to do. End of chapter. Chapter 1995. Here it comes. Mu Qing stared at the beast pet in Lu Ye's arms. She wanted to see what the golden light was, but even so, she couldn't see it clearly. The golden light flashed in her vision. Ying, who was charging at Lu Yi aggressively, was covered in golden light and became stiff. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Lu Yi reached out and grabbed Rizhao, who was called Ying, in his hand. He unsheathed his Panshan saber and placed it on Ying's slender neck. Ying's face was filled with confusion. Everything happened too suddenly. Not to mention the bystanders, even she, who was the one who experienced it, did not notice it. However, at this moment, her body was covered by the golden light. She could not activate her magic power, qi, and blood. The cold blade was close to her body. She did not dare to act rashly. She could clearly feel the sharpness of the saber. Even with her mid-stage sunshine physique, she could feel the stinging pain. In other words, this saber should be able to cut her body open easily. She turned her eyes toward Shang Qingyu. Her eyes were full of pleading, trying to convey a message of help. Spiritual treasure? Shang Qingyu frowned. He finally looked at Lu Yi seriously and didn't dare to underestimate him anymore. His perception was not wrong. This young man who had appeared out of nowhere was indeed the newly promoted Rizhao. Ying's strength was definitely stronger than him. However, after that strange golden light, Ying was actually captured by him. This was obviously not his ability, but that golden light, normal magic treasures couldn't have such mysterious and powerful power. Only a spiritual treasure could. Therefore, he was sure that this young man had a spiritual treasure. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to defeat someone stronger than him so easily. He carefully looked at Ying's condition. Her vitality was intact, her breathing was stable, and her body was covered in golden light. He immediately understood that the spiritual treasure should have a sealing effect. What kind of spiritual treasure was this? Shang Qingyu's mind raced. He couldn't remember which spiritual treasure had such power. The reason why the Formless Palace dared to invade the Wanxiang Sea so openly was because they knew the ins and outs of the Wanxiang Sea very well. Before the invasion, Shang Qingyu even used the Merak sword qi to guard against the Wanxiang Galaxy's fire gourd. Reality proved that his cautiousness was not wrong. His bet with Yuan Se was more of a competition between the two treasures. He had won by a hair's breadth with his insanity. Who would have thought that such an unforeseen event would occur just as they were about to return home? Shang Qingyu narrowed his eyes and looked at Lu Yi. Young man, do you know what you are doing? It had always been the formless palace robbing other forces. Today, someone actually wanted to rob them. Moreover, Yuan Se had said that this young man was not Nikidoresu from Wanxiang Galaxy. In other words, he must have come from an unknown galaxy. Therefore, even if he was killed, Wanxiang Galaxy would not retaliate. The power of this sealing attribute treasure was indeed mysterious and hard to defend against, but it wasn't invincible. He really wasn't afraid of anything. I have a question to ask. Lu Yi placed the Panshan saber on Ying's neck and looked at Shang Qingyu. Shang Qingyu was silent for a moment before he said, "Speak." If it was any other day, he would not have bothered with such an arrogant young man. But now that Ying's life was in his hands, he could not refuse. No matter what, he had to save Ying first. What did your holy maiden do? Why do you want to kill her? From the various information obtained before, Yaya was the saint of the formless palace. She clearly had the opportunity to restore herself, but she had not done so. Obviously, she knew what would happen if she restored herself. Today, Lu Yi was in danger. Yaya was forced to break the jade bracelet and recover the cultivation and memories sealed in the bracelet. After beating Yuan Du into the Wanxiang Sea, she quickly fled. Lu Yi could not ignore this. Since the people of the formless palace were in front of him, he naturally had to ask clearly. Shang Qingyu's eyes flashed. You know the saint? As soon as his voice fell, Ying groaned. Blood flowed from her neck, and the blade penetrated her flesh by an inch. Lu Yi looked at Shang Qingyu indifferently. I am the one asking the questions. You only need to answer. You brat. Nikidoresu, who was standing behind Shang Qingyu, was furious when he saw Ying injured. However, he did not dare to act rashly. He was really aggrieved. But Lu Ye's action undoubtedly made the Nikidoresu of the formless palace aware of his cruelty. It was foreseeable that if Shang Qingyu dared to talk nonsense again, Ying would suffer. Shang Qingyu's eyes showed a trace of appreciation. Such a cruel and merciless young man was rare nowadays. He was quite to his liking. If it were any other day, he would have wanted to subdue him, but now was obviously not the time. He pondered for a moment and said, the saint made some mistakes, so she was hunted down. Seeing that Lu Yi seemed to want to inquire more carefully, he said again, you don't have to ask more about what mistakes she made. This is the secret of the formless palace. No comment. Lu Yi blinked and realized that this secret was impossible for Shang Qingyu to say in any case, so he changed the question. You are hunting her down. What is your final attitude? Attitude? Shang Qingyu smiled slightly. If she knows her mistake, then it's naturally easy to talk about it. She will obediently be the saint, but if she doesn't know her mistake, he stopped talking, but his meaning was already obvious. Lu Ye's eyes lowered slightly. What kind of force was the formless palace? Lu Yi didn't know before and had never heard of it at all, but this time he learned. Along the way, there were many corpses in the usually prosperous Wanxiang Sea. Almost all the top spiritual islands were ransacked. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were the bandits of the cultivation world. Yaya was from the formless palace, but now she was being hunted down. It should not be just because she made some mistakes, but it was very likely that there was a difference in ideology. And after all these years of getting along, Lu Yi naturally knew what Yaya's temperament was like. If she was really willing to return to the formless palace, she would not have maintained the form of a child all these years. She could have recovered her strength long ago. So the conflict between Yaya and the formless palace was irreconcilable. Thinking this way, Lu Yi knew what attitude he should use to treat the formless palace. Kid, I have answered your question. Can you let her go now? Shang Qingyu looked at Lu Yi across the air, and there was some impatience in his expression. Lu Yi said loudly, if you want me to let her go, I can. I still say the same thing. You can go, but leave the things behind. Shang Qingyu's eyes were unhurried. You have just advanced to the Rizhao level, so you may not know the dangers of the cultivation world. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have a treasure. There are many existences in this world that you can't afford to offend. If you let her go now, I can let bygones be bygones, but if you persist, the light of the blade flashed and blood flowed. A severed arm flew out and fell into the Wanxiang Sea, disappearing under the deep sea. Shang Qingyu frowned, and the many Rizhao beside him were full of anger. The countless cultivators who were watching from afar were even more shocked. No one expected Lu Yi to suddenly make a move. Although he did not take Ying's life, he directly cut off one of her arms. The pain made Ying's face contort, but more than that, she was terrified. At such a close distance, she could more clearly and intuitively feel the hidden violence under Lu Ye's calm appearance than Shang Qingyu. What did you say? Lu Yi looked at Shang Qingyu with some confusion. The Wanxiang Sea is windy and strong. I didn't hear you clearly. Say it again. Shang Qingyu's face twitched, and he gritted his teeth. I'll kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, several figures rushed out from behind Shang Qingyu. Zhu Ren, the fourth palace master, was the fastest. He was from the Shadow Clan and did not have much of a presence. However, at this moment, he took the lead, and his whole body turned into an almost imperceptible ball of dim light. When these Rizhao made a move together, Mu Qing's expression changed. She quickly looked at Yuan Sei. Senior Yuan, this was an opportunity. Her personal experience made her understand the mysterious power of the golden light better than anyone else. The reason why Shang Qingyu dared to offend Lu Yi and gave the order to kill him was that he was sure that the golden light was the power of a treasure. Since that was the case, it could not be used frequently. This was the disadvantage of most treasures. Basically, they were trump cards that could only be used once in a short period of time. For example, the Merak sword Qi that Shang Qingyu used before, and the fire gourd fire that Yuan Sei used, but that golden light was different. The 6 Rizhao of the Wanxiang Sea were no match for it, but if Lu Yi was included, they might be able to fight it. This was the best chance for the galaxy to save face. Don't act rashly. However, to Mu Qing's disappointment, Yuan Sei had no intention of taking the opportunity to make a move. Obviously, he had lost his courage after losing the battle just now. Mu Qing's face was full of bitterness. She could not help but think of Jiu Yan. If Jiu Yan was here, with her temper, how could she tolerate Rizhao being so unscrupulous in the Wanxiang Sea? She would have fought with Shang Qingyu long ago. The 6 Rizhao of the Wanxiang Sea watched coldly from the sidelines. Lu Ye's side instantly became a whirlpool of conflict. A series of powerful divine wills rushed over from different directions, easily breaking through his divine soul defense. These Rizhao of the Formless Palace were all veterans. Naturally, they knew the most effective way to deal with a new Rizhao like Lu Yi. It was an attack on the divine soul. As a new Rizhao, his realm was not stable yet. Of course, his divine soul power was far inferior to theirs. Therefore, as long as his divine soul was suppressed, Lu Yi would not be able to resist. In this way, not only could they save Ying, but they could also obtain a powerful treasure. However, to everyone's disbelief, Lu Yi, the new Rizhao, was not directly suppressed as expected under the attack of so many divine souls. Instead, his expression suddenly became ferocious, a reaction caused by the pain in his deity ocean. He swung the long sword in his hand. Ying's head flew up, her face full of confusion and helplessness. The headless corpse fell toward the Wanxiang Sea. Ying! Someone shouted. It was the burly man from before. He seemed to have a good relationship with Ying. Seeing Ying killed, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Lu Ye's eyes were bloodshot. He turned his head and looked to the side. The Pixiu pet beast on his shoulder was shining with golden light. In that direction, Zhu Ren was rapidly approaching Lu Yi. The moment their eyes met, Zhu Ren's heart skipped a beat and he hurriedly retreated. End of chapter. Chapter 1996. The golden light flashed again, and Shang Qingyu's expression became extremely shocked. How can this be? Just as Mu Qing thought before, The reason why he wasn't afraid even after witnessing Lu Ye's means was that he was sure that the power of the treasure couldn't be activated a second time in a short time. This new Rizhao, who came out of nowhere, thought that he could do whatever he wanted after capturing Ying. He was obviously naive, so he didn't hesitate to give the order to kill him. Who knew that another golden light would flash in front of him? Everyone saw what happened to Ying with their own eyes, so when the golden light erupted, almost everyone retreated. No one wanted to face the power of a treasure directly. When the chaos subsided, the Rizhao of the formless palace all had ugly expressions, because Lu Yi had captured another Rizhao. It was the majestic man who called Ying's name just now. This man's body was covered in golden light, just like Ying's blood, qi, and spiritual power were sealed, and he couldn't move. Not far away, Zhu Ren's face was filled with lingering fear. He was sure that Lu Yi wanted to attack him at first because he was at the front. Fortunately, his reaction wasn't slow, and he retreated faster than everyone else when he realized that something was wrong. This made the other party give up his original plan and attack someone else instead. Once that strange golden light was activated, Zhu Ren admitted that he wasn't sure if he could dodge it. If he was really captured by a new Rizhao, then his reputation as the fourth palace master would be completely ruined. You want to? Lu Yi put the Panshan blade on the neck of the majestic man, using him as a shield. He looked over the man's shoulder at Shangqingyu, his expression slightly twisted. Kill who? Until now, the turbulence in the divine sense sea was slowly calmed down under the light of the seven-colored god lotus. The corner of Shangqingyu's eyes twitched violently. He was a little confused. Logically speaking, a treasure that could imprison Rizhao so easily must be a treasure. Only a treasure in this world had such strange power, but if it was really a treasure, it didn't make sense that it could be used a second time so quickly. And if the other party could use it a second time, could he use it a third time, a fourth time? There were indeed a lot of Rizhao, 11 of them came this time, but only 7 were still alive, and 1 was captured. His life was in danger at any time. There were only 6 who could still fight, the same number of Rizhao as the Wanxiang galaxy. The original advantage they had was gone. Previously, 3 Rikagas had died mysteriously. Suddenly, Shangqingyu's heart skipped a beat. Tianyan, did you kill Zhu Zhua and Kuei-shan? Initially, he thought that the deaths of these 3 were the handiwork of the Wanxiang galaxy's Nichou. However, after exchanging blows with Yuan Sei, he realized that the Wanxiang galaxy's Nichou wasn't that murderous. He also didn't have the means to kill Nichou silently. But if it was this young man with a treasure in his hand, Lu Ye's expression was still ferocious, but now it wasn't because of the divine sea's turbulence, but because he was suppressing the desire in his heart. Previously, when he captured Ying, there was a voice that kept ringing in his heart, giving him an urge to activate the power of the talent tree to devour Ying and enjoy that ecstasy once again. But he knew he couldn't do that, because if he really did that, it would be too shocking. Moreover, once this hole was opened again, it might be impossible to suppress it forever. Previously, in order to advance to sunshine, he had no choice but to do so in order to complete his spiritual source as soon as possible. Now that he was sunshine, he could no longer continue. The black fruit on the talent tree was an ominous sign. Lu Yi didn't want it to truly mature. I'll say it one last time. Lu Yi gritted his teeth. He didn't know why, but he could feel a fragrance coming from the captured Nichou in front of him. That fragrance constantly activated the power of the talent tree, making it difficult for him to suppress the desire in his heart. He steeled his heart and swung his long sword again. The muscular man immediately followed in Ying's footsteps. His tough body was cut in half and fell towards the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi raised his long sword and pointed it at Shangqingyu. His face was full of hostility. You can go, but leave the thing behind. The expressions of the faceless palace's Nichou changed again and again. Lu Yi killing Ying just now was beyond their expectations. After all, at that time, everyone thought that Lu Yi would take Ying as a hostage and wouldn't act rashly. But Ying still died. Now that Lu Yi killed again, he was completely unscrupulous. It was as if he didn't care whether he had a hostage or not. And when they thought of the strange golden light that was activated twice, they couldn't help but think of many things. Shangqingyu thought the most. At this moment, he could already confirm that the deaths of Tian Yen, Lu Zhua, and the other two Nicho were inextricably linked to Lu Yi. In other words, in just half a day, 5 Nicho from the Faceless Palace had died in Lu Ye's hands. He definitely couldn't have done it with his strength, so what he relied on was the power of the treasure. Even if it was activated once to kill one person, the treasure had been activated 5 times. Which treasure did this F*** King treasure belong to? As the third palace master of the Faceless Palace, Shang Qingyu had studied many treasures in the starry sky. But even with his vast knowledge, he couldn't make any inferences at the moment. But in any case, Lu Ye's unscrupulous behavior made him very cautious. He told himself that there was no such thing as a treasure that could be activated without limit in this world. The other party couldn't possibly use that kind of golden light again. But he didn't dare to gamble. Just as many thoughts flashed through his mind, in the Wanxiang Galaxy's camp, Yuan Sei suddenly took a step forward and said coldly, "What fellow cultivator Lu means is also what I, Wanxiang Galaxy, mean." Mu Qing stood behind him and sighed slightly. Just now, when several Nicho from the Faceless Palace attacked together, she felt that it was an opportunity, so she transmitted her voice to Yuan Sei. In the end, Yuan Sei was unmoved. But now, after Lu Yi withstood the Faceless Palace's attack and even killed one of them, Yuan Sei stood up. Because on the surface, after 2 people from the Faceless Palace were killed, there were still 6 Nicho left, the same number as the Wanxiang Galaxy. Now that they took the initiative to draw closer to Lu Yi, they had one more person than the other party. Moreover, Lu Yi had that strange golden light treasure. This was the Wanxiang Galaxy's last chance to save face. Of course, Yuan Sei wouldn't miss it, so he stood up. Shang Qingyu suddenly turned his head and looked at Yuan Sei coldly. There was anger and disdain in his eyes. He saw through Yuan Sei's thoughts at a glance. In his heart, he was extremely critical of Yuan Sei's judgment of the situation. But it was undeniable that once the Wanxiang Galaxy and Lu Yi joined forces, the Faceless Palace would not be able to gain any advantage. The losses this time were too great. As many as 5 Nicho had died. Although the Faceless Palace was big and had a lot of Nicho, they shouldn't waste it like this. If he handed over the plundered goods, he might not even be able to keep his position as the third palace master when he returned. He glanced at Yuan Sei coldly, then turned to Lu Yi. "Can you still activate that golden light?" Lu Ye's nose was in the air, his face unruly. "You can try." Shang Qingyu's eyes flashed. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, suddenly, an aura came from afar. For a moment, all the Nicho's attention was attracted. Lu Ye's expression changed as he turned to look. A moment later, a familiar figure appeared in his field of vision. The person who came was extraordinarily handsome. His aura was not too ostentatious, but when the Nicho from the Wanxiang Sea saw this person, their expressions changed. This was because the person who came was the Azure Demon King, Ma Bin. "Why is it so lively?" Ma Bin was a little confused. He had been chasing after He Yun, so he had no idea what happened after that. Now that he had returned, he was surprised to find that a lot of Nicho had gathered here. If he hadn't sensed Lu Ye's aura here, he wouldn't have shown himself so openly. He had obviously gone through a tough battle. His clothes were tattered, but even if his aura was unstable, he seemed to be the center of attention. Everyone's attention was on his right hand. At this moment, he was holding a head in his right hand. The head's eyes were wide open, as if he had died with a grievance. "He Yun." In the Wanxiang Sea camp, Mo Wenli's eyes narrowed. At the beginning, he had joined forces with He Yun to attack Ma Bin. He had personally experienced He Yun's strength, but he didn't expect him to be dead now. Ma Bin even brought his head back. This was one of Zi Xian's 5 venerable monsters. He was an expert who stood at the peak of the Nicho. How could he die just like that? Ma Bin looked left and right, then looked at Lu Yi in surprise. Obviously, he didn't expect Lu Yi to have broken through to the Nicho realm. When he chased after He Yun, Lu Yi was only Yu Yao. It had only been half a day. His surprise only lasted for a moment. It wasn't surprising for the successor of the Dao tree to advance quickly. He casually tossed He Yun's head to Lu Yi and nodded slightly. Lu Yi took the head, glanced at it indifferently, and crushed it to pieces. He Yun was dead. Yuan Du was also dead. Some things had come to an end. As for what happened next, they could only talk about it later. Right now, they had to solve the problem at hand. Formless palace? Ma Bin looked at Shang Qingyu and the others and frowned. Green Demon King Ma Bin. Shang Qingyu had obviously heard of Ma Bin's name. His eyes narrowed slightly. His expression, which had been calm since he came to the Wanxiang Sea, finally showed some seriousness at this moment. Even though he could see that Ma Bin was injured and in poor condition, he still didn't dare to underestimate him. This slight change made the 6 illuminators of the 10,000 Elephant Sea feel bitter in their hearts. This was the Wanxiang Sea, but the people of Formless Palace didn't take them seriously at all. Instead, they showed fear of Ma Bin. This comparison made them feel very frustrated. What's the situation now? Ma Bin looked at Lu Yi and asked. Lu Yi said, Formless Palace invaded the Wanxiang Sea, killed people, set fires and looted resources. They were preparing to retreat. I told them to leave the things behind and get lost. They didn't listen, so they started fighting. You didn't lose out, right? Ma Bin looked at him with concern. Lu Yi shook his head. That's good. Ma Bin nodded slightly. The corners of Shang Qingyu and Yuan Sei's eyes twitched. They wanted to tell Ma Bin that not only did Lu Yi not suffer any losses, but he also killed 2 Rizhao from the Formless Palace. Now, he even forced the Formless Palace into an awkward situation. But no one dared to say it. Chapter 1997. The gate of the Formless Palace on the island of Versatility was already open. A large number of Formless Palace cultivators gathered around the gate, but no one dared to act rashly. More than 10 Sunshine cultivators from the 3 parties gathered near the island of Versatility, facing each other from afar. Shang Qingyu's face was solemn, because he had realized one thing. The Formless Palace's invasion of the Wanxiang Sea was a complete failure. Their plan was good, and everything was going smoothly. However, no one expected Lu Yi to jump out just as they were about to retreat. Shang Qingyu looked at Lu Yi with a deep gaze, as if he was trying to remember his appearance. Then, he turned to Ma Bin and said, Brother Ma, you and Brother Lu are. Ma Bin said calmly, Lu Yi saved my life. What do you want? Shang Qingyu sighed slightly. If that's the case, then my Formless Palace will give face to fellow Taoist Ma. As he said this, he gently shouted, Leave everything behind. In this situation, the Formless Palace had no chance to turn the tables. Since they had to admit defeat, it was not shameful to admit defeat to the Azure Demon King Ma Bin. After all, he was famous. This was actually a way out for Shang Qingyu. Everyone could tell, but no one pointed it out. As soon as he gave the order, the cultivators of the Formless Palace on the island of Versatility unwillingly threw their storage rings filled with loot onto the ground. In the blink of an eye, there were thousands of storage rings in that area. Countless eyes were focused on that area. Shang Qingyu looked at Lu Yi. Are you satisfied with this? Lu Yi looked at him. You can only leave after you leave all your storage rings behind. If anyone dares to hide anything, don't blame me for being ruthless. As he spoke, he stared at Shang Qingyu's right hand. Shang Qingyu was stunned. He subconsciously touched the storage ring on his right hand. This is mine. You still have to leave it behind. Shang Qingyu was so angry that he started laughing. This was truly the first time in history that the robbers had actually been robbed. Unfortunately, it was not good for him to fall out with them, because at this moment, not only were Lu Yi and Ma Bin looking at them, there were also the 6 great sons of the 10,000 Elephant Sea glaring at them covetously. He was sure that Yuan Sei and the others couldn't wait for them to clash with Lu Yi and Ma Bin again. This way, they could join forces to pressure them. When the time came, the people from Formless Palace wouldn't be able to leave even if they wanted to. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Shang Qingyu nodded slightly. All right, as you wish. After saying this, he took off his storage ring and threw it toward the island of Versatility. And them. Lu Yi raised his Panshan blade and pointed at the Rizhao beside Shang Qingyu. Each and every one of these faceless palaces Rizhao looked extremely humiliated. However, Shangqing Yu had already handed over his storage ring. How could they resist? They had no choice but to take off their storage rings one by one and throw them away. Countless cultivators watched this scene from afar. For a moment, they felt a sense of relief, as if they had vented their frustrations. No matter which galaxy they came from or which domain they came from, since they had come to the Wanxiang Sea, they were here to make a living. They were a part of this place. The Wanxiang Palace had suddenly invaded and treated them like pigs and dogs, slaughtering them at will. The Wanxiang Galaxy was unable to protect them and could not resist at all. And it was under such desperate circumstances that Lu Yi of the Three-World Island came out and killed the Rizhou. He deterred everyone and ruthlessly dispelled the arrogance of the formless palace. Now, not only did he force these thieves to give up their loot, but they also couldn't keep their own storage rings. This was really satisfying. Compared to the various responses of the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy to this invasion, Lu Ye's approach was undoubtedly more popular. Can we go now? Shangqing Yu looked at Lu Yi and asked. Lu Yi remained silent with a cold expression. In another direction, Yuan Sei stared at him without blinking. His eyes were secretly filled with anticipation. As soon as Lu Yi gave the order, he would immediately lead the other Rizhou to surround and kill the people of the Formless Palace. Now that they had returned the loot, they naturally had to kill them all. However, he felt that it was a pity that Lu Yi obviously had no intention of doing so. Go back and tell your palace master that in the future, I have the final say in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. If anyone dares to cause trouble again, I will kill them all. Scram. Shangqing Yu blinked when he heard this, then looked at Yuan Sei and the others beside him and said, The Formless Palace will remember what you have done today, fellow Taoist. As he spoke, he floated backward and arrived in front of the door in a few steps. He shouted, Let's go! At this moment, the cultivators of the Formless Palace who had been waiting for a long time began to hurriedly retreat through the door. The first to leave was the Constellation Division, followed by Yu Yao. Shangqing Yu brought up the rear with a few Rizhou. He had been wary of Lu Yi and Ma Bin, but until the few Rizhou disappeared through the door one after another, Lu Yi and Ma Bin did not move. We've been tricked. This thought flashed through Shangqing Yu's mind. He could finally confirm one thing. The treasure that could shoot out the golden light was not unlimited. Lu Yi could no longer activate the power of the treasure. Otherwise, he would not have let them leave so easily. With the strange power of the treasure, Lu Yi alone was enough to kill them all. However, there was no point in confirming this now. In other words, although he had his doubts before, he could only be completely sure after he left. This was an unsolvable situation. The door slowly disappeared. It was obvious that the Formless Palace had closed. This invasion war was declared over with the retreat of the Formless Palace cultivators. However, before the cultivators watching from afar could cheer in excitement, another change occurred. Attack! Following Yuan Sei's order, 4 of the 6 Rizhou from the 10,000 Elephant Sea attacked Ma Bin. Yuan Sei and Yen Gu from the Heaven Flame domain attacked Lu Yi. No one knew why this happened. Because just now, the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy had secretly joined forces with Lu Yi to put pressure on the Formless Palace. However, after the people from the Formless Palace left, they turned their backs on them in the blink of an eye. This change shocked everyone. They could only sigh at how quickly the Rizhou changed his mind and stance. I knew you wouldn't accept this. Lu Yi turned to look at Yuan Sei with a cold expression. However, he was not surprised by the actions of the 6 Rizhou from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Instead, he looked as if he had expected this. Yuan Sei snorted. The 10,000 Elephant Sea is not for you to tell us what to do. An old fox like him who had lived for countless years was difficult to fathom. However, it was undeniable that such a veteran Rizhou was very perceptive. At the last moment of their retreat, Shangqing Yu confirmed that Lu Yi could no longer activate the golden light of the treasure. Yuan Sei naturally thought of this too. What they were afraid of was nothing more than the strange golden light. For a new Rizhou like Lu, without the treasure, who would take a second look? There was also another fact. Ma Bin was the enemy of the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. Back then, he had forced his way into the 10,000 Elephant Island and killed a Rizhou guard. There was also the death of Yuan Du, Gu Shi and Chen Xuanba. Yuan Sei had already confirmed their deaths on the way here. He originally thought that the three of them were most likely killed by the Formless Palace. However, after seeing Lu Ye's methods and hearing Mu Qing's report, Yuan Sei immediately concluded that Yuan Du and the others were killed by Lu Yi. Mu Qing had seen the scene of Yuan Du being injured and Gu Shi and Chen Xuanba being imprisoned by the Golden Light. At that time, the people from the Formless Palace had yet to invade. Both Lu Yi and Ma Bin had great enmity with the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. Previously, when they were facing the invaders from the Formless Palace, Yuan Sei could stand on their side. However, when the Formless Palace left, this fragile alliance was instantly shattered. The real reason why Yuan Sei made up his mind was because of one sentence from Lu Yi. He had previously said that he would have the final say in the 10,000 Elephant Sea in the future. This clearly meant that he wanted to get his hands on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Based on his prestige today and the fact that he had resolved the Formless Palace's invasion, if he really stood up, he would probably be more popular than the people of the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. The 10,000 Elephant Sea had always belonged to the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. Since when was it a place for an outsider to dictate? If Lu Yi was not dealt with today, the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy would completely lose control of the precious land that was the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It was true that the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy had not handled the invasion well. If Lu Yi had not come out in the end, all the looted goods from the Formless Palace would have been taken away. However, this did not mean that the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy should be grateful to Lu Yi. His actions and words had already touched on the fundamental interests of the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy. This was what Yuan Sei could not tolerate. It was very likely that Lu Yi would no longer be able to activate the Golden Light. As for Ma Bin, according to Mo Wenli, he was already injured. Now that he had expended a great deal of effort to kill the great demon Venerable He Yun, his condition must be even worse. It could be said that there was no better opportunity than now to get rid of Lu Yi and Ma Bin. As long as they succeeded, the 10,000 Elephant Sea would return to the 10,000 Elephant Galaxy's control. The battle started again. In order to quickly take down Lu Yi, Yuan Sei had even taken action himself. Moreover, Yan Gai was on the side to provide support. Although they were certain that Lu Yi would no longer be able to activate the power of the treasure, they still had to be on guard. In case Lu Yi could still activate it, the two of them combined were enough to ensure that one of them could take down Lu Yi. However, what shocked Yuan Sei the most was that in the face of their attack, Lu Yi directly jumped into the 10,000 Elephant Sea after saying that sentence. Only one sentence was heard, "Just you wait." With a splash, water splashed everywhere. Yuan Sei was dumbfounded. Yan Gai was also dumbfounded. They had anticipated many possible scenarios, including Lu Yi activating the Golden Light again. However, they did not expect that Lu Yi would actually jump into the 10,000 Elephant Sea on his own accord. Was the 10,000 Elephant Sea so easy to jump into? Yuan Du's sunshine had only been in the sea for a moment, but he had already been eroded to a tragic state. His spiritual power was extremely turbid. Lu Yi, a newly advanced sunshine cultivator, would only be in a worse state than Yuan Du if he jumped in. Yuan Sei was delighted at first. He was delighted that his judgment was right. Lu Yi really could no longer activate the Golden Light. Otherwise, he would not have jumped into the sea. Then, his expression became uncertain. No one would actively seek death, especially a sunshine cultivator. If he could not win, he would at least try. If he really could not win, it would not be too late to jump into the sea. Moreover, Lu Yi had left behind such words. Obviously, he would not give up so easily. Could he solve the problem of the 10,000 Elephant Sea's erosion? Otherwise, why would he jump into the sea to escape? End of chapter. Chapter 1998. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Lu Yi escaped by jumping into the sea. Yuan Sei was shocked and could only turn to look at Ma Bin. However, what he saw made him even more depressed. Ma Bin was facing the siege of the four sunshine of the Wanxiang Sea, but he escaped without looking back. His condition was extremely bad. How could he fight under such circumstances? Moreover, he had received Lu Ye's secret message. Hence, when Yuan Se and the others made their move, he immediately followed Lu Ye's instructions and escaped far away. Chase. Yuan Se was furious as he chased after Ma Bin. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If he missed it today, it would be difficult to kill Ma Bin in the future. He could not chase after Lu Yi from the three-world island who jumped into the sea to escape. Ma Bin did not have the ability and courage to do so. In an instant, the six sunshines split into two groups and chased after Ma Bin. On the reef island, Tao Wu, who had witnessed the conflict from beginning to end, was worried. He looked at Hua Xi beside him and asked, "Friend, are you not worried?" He did not know the relationship between Lu Yi and Hua Xi. He had never seen Hua Xi before. However, since Lu Yi came with Hua Xi and looked very close, it was obvious that their relationship was not ordinary. However, now that Lu Yi was forced to jump into the sea, Hua Xi did not look worried at all. Tao Wu could not understand. This was the Wanxiang Sea. Even if Lu Yi had reached the sunshine level, how could he end up well after falling into the sea? Hua Xi only smiled and shook her head. She had a mysterious look on her face. Tao Wu scratched his head. His face was full of worry. Lu Yi had saved his life. If it was within his power, he would not sit by and do nothing. Just like when the three-world island's development was hindered, he stood his ground and opened a branch of the Rainbow Chamber of Commerce in the three-world island. However, today's battle was beyond his control. Hence, although he was worried and anxious, there was nothing he could do. He only knew one thing. The Wanxiang Sea would be in complete chaos from today onwards. The sunshine of the Wanxiang Galaxy had lost a lot. The major spiritual islands had also lost a lot. The factions behind these spiritual islands would not let this matter rest. When the time came, they would come to the Wanxiang Sea to demand an explanation. The Wanxiang Galaxy, which had just experienced a great change, would not be able to withstand such pressure. When the time came, the vast Wanxiang Sea would probably be divided into different factions. Even the five-color realm, where he came from, would have to send Rizhao to take care of it. Over the years, the myriad phenomenon galaxy had set various rules. Although it was sometimes inconvenient, it was precisely because of these rules that this place was able to become the center of many galaxies and flourish for countless years. If these rules were to disappear one day, then it would probably be impossible for small powers to survive in the entire myriad ocean. At that time, it would definitely be divided up by those top powers. This was definitely not a long-term solution. Just as Bai En was thinking about this, he suddenly raised his head and looked into the distance. At a glance, he saw a stream of light rapidly approaching. "Why are you back again?" Bai En was astonished. There were many people who were just as confused as him, because Ma Bin, who had escaped earlier, had flown back, followed by the six sons of the Vientiane Galaxy. They were filled with killing intent. Even with Bai An's eyesight, he could tell that something was wrong with Ma Bin's condition because his Rizhao's aura was fluctuating. This was obviously a sign of serious injury. It was probably because of his poor condition that Ma Bin was unable to escape from the pursuit of the six Rikashi. If this situation continued, Ma Bin would definitely die. Soon, the Rikashi's figures swept past the island of versatility. Like reincarnation, Ma Bin continued to escape. Yuan Se led the other Rikashi in hot pursuit, like maggots in a corpse. Splash! A sound was heard, and a figure leaped out from under the myriad phenomenon sea. He shouted, "Yuan Se, die!" "Brother Lu!" Bai En immediately discovered Lu Ye's figure and immediately widened his eyes. He wanted to see if Lu Yi had been eroded by the myriad phenomenon sea's water. However, under his observation, Lu Yi did not show any signs of being eroded. Instead, his magic power was surging like waves, and he seemed to be in a better state than before. At the same time as Lu Ye's shout, a familiar golden light shot out. Yuan Se, who was chasing after Ma Bin, instinctively turned his head when he heard Lu Ye's shout. His expression changed drastically. "Oh no!" He reacted quickly and immediately summoned a magic treasure to protect himself. At the same time, his body moved left and right unsteadily. However, he soon experienced what the Rikashi felt when they were targeted by Lu Yi. When the golden light flashed and attacked, no matter how he dodged, he felt that it was impossible to avoid it. When the golden light covered his body, Yuan Sei's magic powers suddenly froze. Even the magic treasure protecting his body was covered by the golden light and lost its spirituality. Lu Yi raised his saber and charged at him aggressively. Mu Qing and the others' expressions changed drastically. On the side, Jianghu reached out and grabbed Yuan Sei, who was imprisoned by the golden light, and saved him from the fate of falling into the myriad phenomenon sea. How could he continue chasing after Ma Bin? Seeing Lu Ye's menacing aura again, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling apprehensive and immediately shouted, "Run!" Yuan Sei's guess was wrong. Lu Yi could still summon the power of the golden light. However, he did not use it just now. Instead, it caught them off guard. The reason why Ma Bin led them back in circles was obviously because he had discussed it with Lu Yi beforehand. There were only 6 Rikashi left in the myriad phenomenon galaxy. Now that Yuan Sei, who was the strongest, was hit, if Lu Yi summoned the golden light a few more times, wouldn't they be wiped out? The others began to panic as well. Following Yengu's words, they all ran off in different directions, quickly disappearing from sight. Lu Yi chased for a while with his blade and could only watch as Yengu and Yuan Sei disappeared into the distance. He had no choice. He had just reached the Rikashi level and had not stabilized his cultivation. In terms of speed, he was not as fast as Yengu. Of course, if he used Blood Escape, he might have a chance to catch up. However, in that short period of time, the Pai Xiu swallowed the water of the myriad phenomenon sea was barely enough to summon the power of one golden light. It was impossible to summon a second one, so it was meaningless even if he caught up. His aggressive pursuit was more for show. After a while, Lu Yi stopped and slowly put away his Pan Shan blade. The fierce battle between the Rikashi level and the Rikashi level had finally come to an end. The changes in the middle were too much for the cultivators to take in. In just one day, more than 20 Rikashi level cultivators had appeared on the myriad phenomenon sea. This was something that had not happened for many years. However, at this moment, only Lu Yi was still standing. Countless eyes were looking from all directions. The cultivators with some foresight understood one thing clearly. From today onwards, the myriad phenomenon sea had changed. The people of the formless palace were forced to retreat. The Rikashi-level cultivators of the myriad phenomenon galaxy fled pathetically. The vast myriad phenomenon sea would probably belong to the Lu family in the future. This was undoubtedly a historical moment. Although they did not participate in it personally, being able to witness it with their own eyes still made many cultivators excited. Messages were sent by different cultivators and quickly spread in all directions. On the myriad phenomenon island, Lu Yi slowly landed and looked at the small mountain of storage rings on the ground. These were left behind by the formless palace cultivators before they left. Until now, no one dared to touch them. Ma Bin had returned. He landed not far from Lu Yi and nodded slightly at him. He seemed to be fine, but Lu Yi smelled a trace of blood on him. This was caused by Ma Bin's inability to suppress his qi and blood. Obviously, he was not in good condition. 2 more figures flew over. They were Luan Xiaoa and Yen Miao, who had been guarding the Four-Corner Island. Lu Yi had sent them a message earlier, asking them to come over. However, even if they were in the Rikashi level, it would still take some time for them to arrive. The 4 Rikashi of the 3-world island were gathered in one place. Lu Yi looked left and right. He could clearly feel that at this moment, countless gazes were focused on him from all directions. To him, today's battle was over. However, to the myriad phenomenon sea and the cultivators here, some things were just the beginning. He had a plan in mind. He leaped into the air with a myriad of emotions. Back then, when he was chased by Old Tang, he accidentally fell into the myriad phenomenon sea through the insect path. When he first saw the magnificence and prosperity of this place, both he and Old Tang were like country bumpkins who had never seen the world. In a foreign land, the 2 of them put aside their grudges and formed a team. During this period, he struggled to survive while Old Tang wandered about. Later, he obtained the minor constellation palace and built Matchless Island. Only then did he gain a foothold on the myriad phenomenon sea. With the guidance of the reincarnation tree, he returned to the Jade Snail Galaxy without hesitation. He brought the cultivators of his homeland to the myriad phenomenon sea to pursue their dreams. In the end, he came full of expectations, only to find that Matchless Island had changed owners. Even old Tang, who had stayed behind, was almost killed. He was not as strong as others, so he could only endure. Instead, he built the three-world island, fought the Baiyue, and defeated Zixien. He established his reputation as the #1 cultivator under the Rikashi. With a long saber, he carved out a bloody path. The cultivators of the three-world island finally had a stable cultivation environment. If there were no accidents, Lu Yi would have to leave the three-world island after ascending to the Rikashi level. At that time, without the protection of his reputation, the future of the three-world island would be uncertain. However, no one expected Yuan Du to do that. The person who set the rules did not follow them. It was the biggest joke in the world. Even at that time, Lu Yi did not think much of it. He wanted to take the opportunity to retreat and move the three-world island to the bottom of the sea. In the end, Ma Bin, who could not bear to see him suffer, appeared out of nowhere. Then it was Yaya and then Hua Ci. Unwilling to be left out, unwilling to watch helplessly, he broke the taboo, activated the power of the talent tree, polished his spiritual source, and quickly ascended to the Rikashi level to participate in the battle. Step by step, to reach this level. It was fate, helplessness, and forced by the situation. However, at this moment, Lu Yi realized that the result was not bad. Since they could break the rules set by others, then the rules of the myriad phenomenon sea should be set by themselves. Anyone who dared to break the rules would be killed without mercy. From today onwards, all spiritual islands in the myriad phenomenon sea, big and small, will be under the jurisdiction of the three-world island. If anyone is unwilling, leave the myriad phenomenon sea within 2 months. Chapter 1999. Lu Ye's voice was not loud, but under the influence of the sunshine's magical power, it spread out in layers until it covered the entire Wanxiang Sea. In a short while, all the cultivators in the Wanxiang Sea heard his announcement. The 6 sunshine who had fled to the edge of the Wanxiang Sea turned around abruptly. How dare he? Mo Wenli gritted his teeth and growled. He was clearly trying to take over the Wanxiang Sea. The Wanxiang Sea had always belonged to the local galaxy. There had been a few crises in the past, but no one had ever been able to overturn the local galaxy's dominance. Until today, 3 of the original 5 Sunshine Guards had died. Although another 4 had come to help, they could not defend themselves against the strange golden light. Now, they were fleeing in panic and had lost all face. In the face of the Formless Palace's power, they were powerless. However, Lu Yi forced the Formless Palace to leave behind all the looted goods. Many cultivators saw such a stark contrast. Now, Lu Yi was obviously more capable of protecting the Wanxiang Sea's interests than they were. He was better at protecting the Wanxiang Sea's cultivators in the face of a powerful foreign invasion. If Lu Yi really wanted to take over the Wanxiang Sea and take over the Wanxiang Sea, the local galaxy could not do anything. Summon Juyen back. Yuan Sei transmitted his voice as his divine consciousness surged. He looked defeated. There was nothing they could do in the current situation. They could only summon Juyen back and let her handle it. They heard that Juyen had a good relationship with the three-world island. Perhaps if Juyen stepped in, there was still room for negotiation. Otherwise, if someone else really took over the Wanxiang Sea, the local galaxy would become the laughing stock of the entire cultivation world. On the Wanxiang Island, Lu Ye's voice sounded again. The Formless Palace's looted goods will be kept by the island for now. The major spiritual islands will be responsible for the losses. You can come to the island to collect the looted goods after 10 days. As soon as he said this, Ming Dang, who was on the distant reef island, rolled his eyes and shouted, "Island Master Lu, are you serious? Are you really willing to return the looted goods of the major spiritual islands?" He had an excited expression on his face, as if he had suffered a huge loss in the previous incident, but in fact he had foresight. Long before the Formless Palace attacked the Five-Colored Island, he had left with a large number of resources and cultivators. Although the Five-Colored Island had suffered losses, the losses were not great. Now that he had spoken, he was undoubtedly echoing Lu Ye's words, because he had vaguely seen through Lu Ye's intentions. With a top-tier spiritual island master like him speaking in agreement, it would undoubtedly make it easier for Lu Yi to carry out his plan. He was not the only one. Countless cultivators in the entire 10,000 Elephant Sea were overjoyed. After this incident, countless people had died. All the top-grade spiritual islands and even some of the high-grade spiritual islands had suffered a calamity. The dead couldn't be resurrected, so they didn't think much about the looted goods, even though Lu Yi had already forced the people of Formless Palace to leave everything behind. No one had expected that Lu Yi would be willing to return it. This was undoubtedly a pleasant surprise. Smart people could tell that this was Lu Ye's move to win over the people. If he wanted to control the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he would need the support of the various forces behind the major spiritual islands. By paying a price and gaining the support of the various forces, it would undoubtedly be easier for him to control the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Compared to the benefits he could obtain in the future, what was the price he paid now? Moreover, he had obtained these goods by robbing the people of Formless Palace in the first place. But even so, the fact that Lu Yi could do such a thing still gave people a good impression of him. Many people secretly praised Lu Yi in their hearts. If it were someone else who didn't have such a big plan and stood in Lu Ye's position, they would have already taken all the resources for themselves. Of course. Lu Yi nodded slightly and said, also, after this incident, the forces behind the various spiritual islands may send Rizhao to investigate the situation. Please tell Rizhao to report to the Three-World Island immediately when he comes to the 10,000 Elephant Sea and do not cause any trouble. The rules of the 10,000 Elephant Sea are the same as before. If anyone dares to break the rules, the Three-World Island will not let them off easily. To be honest, the rules of the 10,000 Elephant Sea were quite useful. Under the restrictions of the various rules, it could ensure that even if a conflict broke out in the 10,000 Elephant Sea, the scale of the conflict would not be too big. This made it easier to govern. Admittedly, some of the rules were unreasonable. However, these rules had been in place for tens of thousands of years and were deeply rooted. Lu Yi did not intend to change them too much. Now that the Three-World Island had just taken over the 10,000 Elephant Sea, there were some things that could not be rushed. Therefore, it was best to stick to the previous rules. Thousands of storage rings were kept by Lu Yi into the Little Flower World. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he called out and a few figures followed closely behind him. They flew towards the Three-World Island. After he left, more news was passed on through the hands of cultivators. Today's battle had turned the 10,000 Elephant Sea upside down. This treasured land that had been ruled by the local galaxy for countless years had completely changed owners. Such a major event was rare in the entire starry sky. The forces behind the top spiritual islands naturally needed to know first-hand information. Today's battle was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. After all, as many as 7 Rizhao had died. In this battle, the local galaxy suffered great losses and the Formless Palace was covered in dirt. On the other hand, the first island master of the Three-World Island, who had just been promoted to Rizhao, had reaped great rewards. The news of Lu Yi controlling the Golden Light-type treasure and having a strong sealing power against Rikishi also spread quickly. A newly promoted Rikishi was indeed nothing, but such a strange and difficult to guard against Rikishi was not something that could be taken lightly. The key was that such an attribute treasure had been activated several times in the short span of one day. It was this attribute treasure that gave the newly promoted Rizhao the confidence to declare his rule over the 10,000 Elephant Sea. On the Three-World Island, Lu Yi and the others returned. Ma Bin immediately entered the Spirit Jade Mine to heal his injuries. This battle had not only made his recovery over the past year go up in smoke, but also worsened his injuries. Before this, he had forcefully suppressed it in front of outsiders. Now that he had returned to the three-world island, he could no longer suppress it. Lu Yi personally sent him into the spirit jade mine. Seeing that he had entered a state of recovery, he was relieved. When he came out, Yuan Xiao and Yen Miao were waiting outside. Lu Yi glanced at Yen Miao and ordered, "First Elder, please go back and bring back the blue sea snail. Also, inform the island's cultivators of the changes here." When the three-world island's cultivators had left, the blue sea snail was taken to the mermaid territory by second senior sister. If they wanted to return now, they had to bring the blue sea snail back and blow it on the island to open the door to the sea. This was not difficult for Yen Miao, who had already been promoted to Rizhao. It should only take a few days. Okay. Yen Miao immediately nodded in agreement. He flashed out of the three-world island and disappeared into the sea. "Junior brother, what do I need to do?" Yuan Xiao asked. Lu Yi looked at her and then at Hua Ci, who was standing not far away. He said, "There's nothing to do for now. Senior sister, please take care of Hua Ci." Although he had made a name for himself in today's battle, he did not rely on his own abilities. He relied more on the Pishio's golden light. His own abilities were not enough to conquer or even rule the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Although it was unlikely that anyone would come to the three-world island to cause trouble, there were still some things that he had to take precautions against. Hua Ci was the Pishio's master. Hence, nothing must happen to her. With Yuan Xiao by his side to protect him, he felt more at ease. He actually wanted to have a good chat with Hua Ci. Based on their interaction this time, something was wrong with Hua Ci. She seemed to have lost her memory. But now was not the time. He still had some problems to solve. Lu Yi sat down cross-legged in front of the entrance of the spirit jade mine. The three-world island's protective array had not been rebuilt yet. The entire spirit island was in a defenseless state. It was the easiest time for outsiders to invade. If he stayed here, he could better protect Ma Bin, who was recuperating. He immersed his mind and felt the changes in his body. After reaching the Sunshine Realm, his spiritual power, physique, and even soul power had increased tremendously. This was an overall transformation brought about by a major realm increase. As his realm gradually stabilized, this growth would continue for a while. It was just that it would not be as strong as before. Now that he had already condensed the flower of the body and the flower of Qi, the next step was to condense the flower of the god when he reached the limit of the Sunshine Realm. This should not be too difficult for him. The rainbow god Lotus had been nourishing his soul. His soul power was constantly growing. Furthermore, he could enter the ancestral land of the Soul Clan at any time. Cultivating soul power in that place would definitely yield twice the results with half the effort. Looking at the entire cultivation of the three flower, only the flower of the Qi required energy and time. After passing this hurdle, the rest of the journey would be smooth. Lu Yi was looking forward to the changes that would happen to him after he condensed the flower of the god. He also wanted to know what the secret of the three flowers would entail. However, that would be a long time in the future. Right now, he had an urgent problem that needed to be solved. As he immersed his mind, he could clearly see a black fruit hanging on a branch on the talent tree. He could feel that this fruit was filled with a cold and ominous aura. If he listened carefully, he seemed to be able to hear a wailing sound coming from inside. In a calm state, this black fruit did not seem to have any effect on him. However, Lu Yi knew that once his emotions fluctuated, this fruit would cause a huge distortion in his heart. Today, he had fought with others several times. His heart was filled with ruthlessness. When he captured Rizhao from the formless palace, he even had the urge to devour them. It was the greed and addiction that came with having tasted the marrow. Fortunately, he did not really do that. However, he could persevere this time. What about the next time? And the time after that? Lu Yi did not want to be the second Zhao Nian, so he had to find a way to get rid of this black fruit. There was something to take care of. End of chapter. Chapter 2000. Lu Yi knew that the formation of the black fruit was inseparable from the foundation of those cultivators he had devoured. Whether it was Su Yuqing or Ma Bin, they had both told him that the Tao tree could burn all things in the world, except for the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Therefore, he guessed that this black fruit should be the condensation of the 7 emotions and 6 desires of those cultivators he had devoured. It was precisely because of this that it would affect his own temperament. How should he deal with this thing? Lu Yi wanted to pick it, but this was not a real fruit and could not be touched at all. Naturally, he could not pick it. He then turned to the power of the talent tree, wanting to burn this fruit, but no matter how he urged it, the fruit was safe and sound, showing no signs of being burned. Over the next few days, Lu Yi had lost count of the number of attempts he made, but he was unable to do anything to the black fruit. In fact, because of his repeated failures, his mood became even more irritable. The black fruit began to emit a black mist. As the mist spread, Lu Ye's aura underwent a huge change, becoming gloomier, and there was a bloodthirsty impulse in the depths of his heart. Sensing that something was wrong, he quickly calmed his mind and slowly calmed the distracting thoughts in his heart. After a full 2 hours, Lu Yi slowly recovered. After thinking for a moment, he raised his hand and pointed forward. A section of the root of the talent tree extended from his fingertip. With this as the foundation, a large amount of aura gathered, and the power of magic power and divine soul also surged endlessly. In the blink of an eye, a doppelganger appeared in front of him. It was the talent tree doppelganger. Lu Yi had not constructed a talent tree doppelganger for a long time, because relatively speaking, the precious blood doppelganger was more convenient and faster, and there were more of them. The talent tree doppelganger required a section of the root of the talent tree as the foundation to be constructed. If there was an accident, the split talent tree doppelganger would probably be lost. Unlike the precious blood doppelganger, even if it was destroyed, it would not have much impact on him. This time, constructing the talent tree doppelganger was a helpless attempt, and it was also a flash of inspiration in his mind. The moment the talent tree doppelganger was formed, Lu Yi could not help but raise his eyebrows, and a look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. This was because he found that the black fruit hanging on the top of the talent tree doppelganger was obviously smaller. Was it really possible? Lu Yi was overjoyed. The reason he attempted to construct a talent tree avatar was because in the process of constructing this avatar, he needed to split off a portion of his foundation. Not only did this include the roots of the talent tree, but it also included his blood essence, magic power, and soul force. If that was the case, would the black fruit also be split? It was because of this that he decided to give it a try. The results proved that the black fruit had indeed been split. In that case, he only needed to destroy the talent tree clone, which was equivalent to destroying a part of the black fruit. Then he could construct a new talent tree avatar and continue to destroy it. By dividing the black fruit again and again, he would be able to completely destroy it sooner or later. Lu Yi thought so, but he didn't dare to make a move. A long time ago, he had a feeling that if the talent tree was lost or destroyed, it would not be a good thing for him. Furthermore, if he were to use this method to deal with the black fruit, it would not be possible with just one talent tree clone. He would need a lot. He didn't even know if he would be able to condense another talent tree clone after losing it. The talent tree was extremely important to him, and he couldn't afford to be careless. Therefore, although he had discovered such a method, Lu Yi couldn't really do it. On second thought, didn't Zhao Nian discover this method back then? He should have discovered it, but he still couldn't solve his problem. This meant that this method was feasible, but not advisable. In the end, Lu Yi didn't destroy his talent tree clone because he didn't dare to take the risk. However, just as he withdrew his talent tree clone, he suddenly remembered something. Not only did he have the talent tree clone, but he also had the treasure blood clone. The talent tree clone couldn't be destroyed at will, but the treasure blood clone didn't have this concern. If one was destroyed, he would still have a second one. Even if they were all destroyed, he could still condense another one. If the treasure blood clone could split the black fruit, thinking of this, Lu Ye's mind suddenly became active. He immediately activated the treasure blood clone and condensed it. However, after the treasure blood clone appeared, the black fruit didn't change. This made him a little disappointed, but he didn't give up. Instead, he made more attempts. This was because he had found a way to solve his current problem. He had a premonition that this might be the only right direction for him. Moreover, this was an advantage he had that Zhao Nian didn't have. As he kept trying, he didn't notice the passage of time until Wan Xiao called out softly, "Junior brother." Lu Yi opened his eyes and looked at her in a daze. Wan Xiao said, "The cultivators of this island have all returned. There's only 1 day left before the 10-day deadline you set. Tomorrow, the major spiritual islands should come to retrieve their lost resources. What do you think?" Lu Yi slowly came back to his senses and realized that there was a group of people standing behind Wan Xiao. The people of Yu Yao's level on this island were all there, as well as some old seniors he was familiar with in Jiuzhou. No one had expected that the situation on the Wanxiang Sea would change so drastically in just a few days. They had followed Lu Ye's instructions and moved to the Mermaid Clan's territory under the sea to take refuge. However, in just a few days, Yan Miao suddenly returned and told everyone that the Three-World Island was now in charge of the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi had advanced to Rizhao and killed many of them as if he were cutting vegetables. Not only did he stop the invasion of a powerful force called the Formless Palace, but he also defeated Rizhao from the local star system. When they heard the news from Yan Miao, no one dared to believe it. After all, it was too unbelievable. However, everyone knew that Yan Miao wouldn't joke about such things. Through the portal opened by the Azure Sea Snail, the cultivators of the Three-World Island returned. After confirming that the situation here was as Yan Miao had said, they felt extremely conflicted. Just 10 days ago, they had to flee in the face of danger. However, after returning, they somehow became the master of the Wanxiang Sea. This change was earth-shattering and caught everyone off guard. However, regardless of whether they were mentally prepared or not, being able to rule the Wanxiang Sea was a great thing for the cultivators of the Jade Conch boundary. This was a land of treasures. It was the reason why the Wanxiang Galaxy was so powerful today. If the Jade Conch boundary could control this place, it wouldn't take long for it to become as powerful as the Wanxiang Galaxy. Wan Xiao didn't want to disturb Lu Yi. Naturally, she could tell that Lu Yi was comprehending something recently. However, now that the 10-day deadline was approaching, she had no choice but to interrupt Lu Ye's comprehension. Lu Yi understood. He glanced at everyone and nodded slightly. Then, he took out the storage rings from the Little Flower Realm. "I'll have to trouble you to check the resources in here and prepare for the handover of resources to the major spiritual islands tomorrow." Tang Jun looked at him with interest. "Are you really willing to return so many good things to the spiritual islands?" "As far as I know, the resources in here include at least 10 top-grade spiritual islands and 18 superior-grade spiritual islands. This number is huge. If these things are given to the Three-World Island for our own use, it shouldn't be a problem to supply us for a few hundred years." Lu Yi said, "I've already said it. It's too late to regret it now. Or do you have any good advice?" Tang Jun chuckled, "What advice? However, this way the Three-World Island will be more popular. It's not a loss to use these resources in exchange for better governance in the future." Without a doubt, he could tell what Lu Yi was planning. Although the resources were huge, the hearts of the people were harder to come by. If the Three-World Island really had the power to suppress the Wanxiang Sea, they wouldn't need to win over the hearts of the people. If anyone dared to oppose them, they could just suppress them forcefully. However, the Three-World Island didn't have such power now. The only thing that the Three-World Island could use now was the golden light of the Pai Xiu. Perhaps after Ma Bin recovered, he could become the mainstay of the Three-World Island. However, that wasn't the case now. Resources could be earned at any time in the future. Other things aside, the Three-World Island alone could earn them a lot of money every day. Originally, Lu Yi would have to leave the Wanxiang Sea after he became a Rizhao. The fate of the Three-World Island was hard to predict. However, there was no need to worry about that now. As long as Lu Yi could control the Wanxiang Sea, the Three-World Island would always be the Three-World Island. There was another point that Tang Jun didn't mention, but everyone was well aware of it. The largest portion of the looted resources was from the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce. It took up almost half of the share. The other forces would probably send people to hand over the looted resources tomorrow. However, who would dare to come from the Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce? Even if someone really came, the Three-World Island wouldn't care about it. This portion was destined to be taken by the Three-World Island. Apart from that, there was also the Purple Jade Island. The Wanxiang Chamber of Commerce would never send people to hand over the resources, so the Purple Jade Island definitely wouldn't. In fact, there was no one left in the Purple Jade Island. All the Purple Jade Beast cultivators had fled. Obviously, they were afraid of being punished by Lu Yi. After all, the ones who attacked the Three-World Island this time were Yuan Du and He Yun. Both of them were dead. From now on, the Purple Jade Beast cultivators would never have a foothold in the Wanxiang Sea. Therefore, even if they returned the resources, it would only be a small portion. Using this to win people's hearts was undoubtedly a good deal. Just this alone would directly show the benevolence and tolerance of the Three-World Island. It would reduce the rejection and backlash of the entire Wanxiang Sea. There was also another matter. The ownership of the Wanxiang Island and the Purple Jade Island, the two top spiritual islands. The Purple Jade Beast cultivators had fled and the Wanxiang Rizhao had also left the Wanxiang Sea. These two top spiritual islands were destined to fall into the hands of the Three-World Island in the future. A single force controlling three top spiritual islands was something that had never happened in the history of the Wanxiang Sea. It could be said that after the previous battle, the Three-World Island had profited greatly, both in terms of reputation and actual benefits. The Three-World Island ate the meat while the other spiritual islands drank the soup. Moreover, it was the soup that originally belonged to them. Only by doing this could the Wanxiang Sea have a better future. End of chapter. Chapter 2001. For a special place like the Wanxiang Sea, it was not a good thing for a single power to dominate it. In the past, the Wanxiang Sea had the characteristic of being able to accommodate hundreds of people, which led to its prosperity and prosperity. The various top factions had noticed this, which was why they allowed their own galaxies to control the Wanxiang Sea. This was because every faction needed a place like this to exchange resources and information with other factions. Now that the Wanxiang Sea had changed owners, as long as the Three-World Island did not interfere with the interests of other factions and maintain the previous status quo, there would not be much resistance. The inventory of resources was not difficult, and Tang Jun was in charge of this. He took the thousands of storage rings away. Lu Yi then looked at Luan Xiaoa. Has any Rizhao arrived recently? Judging by the time, the Rizhao of the various factions should have arrived at the Wanxiang Ocean by now. With the path of insects, the information would not be so limited. According to the instructions he had left behind, if a Rizhao were to arrive, they would have to report to the Three-World Island first. However, in reality, he did not sense any Rizhao's aura arriving at the Three-World Island. Luan Xiaoa said, I did sense many Rizhao's aura recently, but these people did not enter the Wanxiang Sea. They only stayed outside the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Ye's eyes flashed as if he had sensed something. It seemed like it would not be easy for the Three-World Island to control the Wanxiang Sea completely. This could be seen from the Rizhao's attitude. They had received news from their own factions, and now that they had arrived at the Wanxiang Galaxy, they did not enter the Wanxiang Sea and only stayed outside. They were obviously waiting to see what would happen. They wanted to see if the Three-World Island had the ability to control the vast Wanxiang Sea. They did not enter because they did not want to offend the Three-World Island. Once they entered the Wanxiang Sea, they would only have one choice, which was to acknowledge the Three-World Island's authority and report to the Three-World Island. Otherwise, they would be breaking the rules set by Lu Yi. So what were they waiting for? Were they waiting for the transfer of resources tomorrow? Lu Yi didn't think so. The total amount of resources that had been looted from the various spiritual islands was indeed huge. However, it wasn't a lot when it was distributed among the spiritual islands. Especially for Riguang, even if those resources were lost, it wouldn't be a big deal. There was no need for them to wait for such a small amount of resources. Lu Yi did not think too much about it. To the Three-World Island, controlling the 10,000 Elephant Sea was already a foregone conclusion. Anyone who tried to interfere was an enemy. As the saying went, counter soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. He waved his hand, gesturing for Luan Xiaoa to return to her work. Then, he got up and walked into the spirit jade vein. Soon they arrived at the depths. A figure was sitting cross-legged there, quietly recuperating. It was Ma Bin. Compared to 10 days ago, his condition didn't seem much better. Only his aura was slightly more stable. Sensing Lu Ye's arrival, Ma Bin slowly opened his eyes. What's the matter? If there wasn't anything important, Lu Ye definitely wouldn't disturb him at this juncture. Looking at this junior of 9 provinces, Ma Bin had a complicated expression on his face. Previously, when his Dao foundation was damaged, he had already accepted his fate. With his reputation, it was impossible for him to find a spirit jade mine that could be used to heal his injuries. However, Lu Ye had given him a glimmer of hope, which was why he had come. He didn't expect to encounter such a situation. During the chaotic battle, he had chased He Yun for hundreds of millions of miles and killed him at the entrance of the insect path. However, it was also because of this that he missed the various changes that followed. When he returned, Lu Ye had somehow advanced to the sunshine level and was threatening the formless palace. After that, the formless palace had no choice but to retreat, and the 6 sunshine level cultivators of the 10,000 Elephant Sea had also fled. It was hard to imagine that a newly advanced sunshine level cultivator could do such a thing. Even Chao Nian from 10,000 years ago paled in comparison to the current Lu Ye. At the very least, Chao Nian did not have such courage and means when he had just advanced to the sunshine level. Senior, what's the background of the formless palace? Lu Ye sat in front of Ma Bin and asked. He had come here mainly to ask about the formless palace. He had never heard of this force before, but with just one encounter he could feel the strength of the other party. 11 sunshine-level cultivators had been dispatched at once, and this did not include the 2 who had chased after Yaya at the beginning. In this confrontation, they had formed a deadly feud. The enemy was in the dark, and he was in the light. Lu Ye of course had to find out more about the other party. The formless palace. Ma Bin murmured. It's indeed an unknown force, or rather, it's not known by ordinary people. In the following period of time, with Ma Bin's explanation, Lu Ye gradually learned about the formless palace. There was a vast area in the starry sky, empty and deathly silent, and filled with all kinds of magnificent wonders. It was extremely dangerous, and even Sunshine could not guarantee his own safety if he went in there. This vast area, if really calculated, was about the size of hundreds of 10,000 elephant galaxies. This was the most barren place in the starry sky. There were no living creatures, and there was no decent boundary. It was even more barren than the remote Jade Conch galaxy. Although the Jade Conch galaxy was remote, it was still a galaxy with 3 large realms, and there were also other small realms. The area where the formless palace was located was really barren. In that part of the starry sky, even spiritual jades were rarely produced. However, in the center of such a place, there was only one top boundary, and it was the formless star. If there were no accidents, people would not be able to discover the formless star, because there were many wonders in the starry sky, and there were too many dangers. Until one day an expert walked out of the formless star. He had an evil temperament, and his methods were cruel. Moreover, he came from a place like the formless star, and his style of doing things was even more unscrupulous. Naturally, he provoked many enemies. However, he was strong enough, so although he had many enemies, he could always win every time he fought. As the number of enemies grew, his reputation grew. Gradually, a group of lawless people gathered around him, and they committed crimes everywhere. The predecessor of the formless palace was actually a group of galactic pirates, but they were a group of very strong galactic pirates. Ma Bin explained slowly. As their danger grew, they finally attracted the attention of those top forces, and a siege was inevitable. In that battle, the formless palace suffered heavy losses, and there were even rumors that the expert from the formless star was killed. Since then, this powerhouse had disappeared for a period of time. However, a few decades later, he appeared again, and his strength became stronger than before. The danger was even greater, and the reputation of the formless palace gradually spread. Subsequently, it continued to attract some villains or criminals who had committed crimes and had nowhere to go to seek refuge. After so many years of development, the Formless Palace now gathered many experts from various races. They hid in the Formless Star, and it was difficult for outsiders to come in contact with them. Even if there were big forces who wanted to join forces to besiege them, it was difficult to find the specific location of the Formless Star in that vast and barren land. Once, the Yellow Dragon domain took the lead in launching an encirclement operation. In the end, while they were still halfway there, they suffered heavy losses due to the explosion of an unstable starry sky wonder and had to return home. Since then, the Formless Palace became even more arrogant. After listening to Ma Bin's explanation, Lu Yi thought for a while and realized that the Formless Palace's sunshine was indeed complicated. He saw the Human Clan, Shadow Clan, Bone Clan, Demon Clan, Devil Clan. It was simply a place to hide evil. Because it is extremely difficult to even nurture spirit jades in that starry sky, the Formless Palace often goes out to plunder. This time, for some reason, they targeted the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi knew why they targeted the Wanxiang Sea. It was just a coincidence. Senior, what's the matter with the Formless Palace's ultra-long-distance transmission? If it's as you said, didn't those people directly teleport from the Formless Star to the Wanxiang Sea? Can such a long-distance transmission be achieved? This was the point that Lu Yi did not understand the most. Just the starry sky where the Formless Star was located was the size of hundreds of Wanxiang galaxies, and the Formless Star was far away from the Wanxiang Sea. What kind of method could directly connect the two distant places together? I don't know how they did it. I only know that there is a treasure in the Formless Palace. Every time they go out to plunder, they use the power of this treasure to teleport back and forth. A treasure of the treasure. Lu Ye's expression changed slightly. He suddenly remembered the filthy race he had encountered before. The filthy race controlled a treasure called the Heavenly Frost Mirror, which could release heavenly frost chi anywhere in the starry sky and then freeze and shatter space to form a worm path that could be used to pass through. The Formless Palace's method of transmission was obviously similar to the filthy race's method of opening the worm path, but the two methods were not the same. One was opening the worm path, while the other was transmission. Therefore, the treasure of the Formless Palace should not be the Heavenly Frost Mirror's treasure. He then thought of another question. Senior, do all treasures have their own treasures? So far, he had only come into contact with a few treasures, but whether it was the Vine of Good Fortune he saw in the Alpha Origin stage, the Constellation Palace, or the Azura Field, they all had their own treasures. Moreover, the power of the treasures to a large extent continued the power of the treasures themselves. Furthermore, his Dice of Fate was also a rare treasure. This was undoubtedly a very strange thing. Why did treasures have their own treasures? It was rumored that treasures were born together with the starry sky, and some were derived from the wonders of the starry sky. Then how were treasures born? Treasures were not living creatures, and there was no way to raise them. Basically, all treasures have their own treasures. Of course, there are exceptions. Ma Bin nodded. You were not strong enough before, so you didn't come into contact with many treasures, but now you are a sunshine expert. You may encounter all kinds of treasures in the future. You have to remember, there are many attributes of treasures, but the power displayed by murderous-type treasures cannot be resisted by ordinary sunshine experts. The power of a treasure can only be offset by other treasures. You can think of it this way, once the power of most treasures is fully activated, it is the work of a sunshine expert. Chapter 2002. When a treasure's power was activated, it was almost equivalent to an extreme sunshine realm expert. And the power of a treasure could only be offset by other treasures. Ma Bin's words reminded him of the battle between Yuan Sei and Shang Qingyue. One of them had summoned the Fire Gourd, while the other had summoned the Merak Sword Qi. That level of battle was indeed not something ordinary people could compare to. Are there many treasures? Lu Yi asked. He alone had come into contact with many treasures. One could imagine how many treasures there were in the universe. Ma Bin thought for a moment and said, there are quite a lot of attribute treasures, but most of them are used as realm-suppressing artifacts. They won't be used easily. After all, these attribute treasures are related to the stability of a realm or even an entire galaxy. When they aren't used, they are the most powerful deterrent. Lu Yi understood. If the Formless Palace had not caused such a ruckus, Yuan Se would not have brought the fire gourd along. Initially, he thought that the fire gourd would be able to resolve the crisis easily. Who knew that Shang Qingyue was prepared and had a Merak sword aura to protect him? Speaking of the Merak sword chi, Lu Yi felt a sense of familiarity when he saw it, as if he had seen it somewhere before. It was only now that he suddenly remembered something. It was not long after he had ascended to the constellation realm and left the 9 states to explore the universe for the first time. He had met an expert called Feng Rumo in the universe. This guy was chased by a sword light and fled in panic. This person asked Lu Yi for something to eat and drink. Later, under his guidance, Lu Yi encountered the Spectre ship and met Haiteng. The Merak sword chi that Shang Qingyue summoned gave Lu Yi a feeling that it was similar to the sword light that chased after Feng Rumo. At that time, he was not strong enough and could not see through Feng Rumo's strength. Now that he thought about it, Feng Rumo must be someone on the same level as Ma Bin. Such an expert was being chased by a sword light. Could it be the Merak sword? But after thinking about it carefully, it was not right. If it was a treasure, Feng Rumo would not be able to resist it. But if that golden light was the Merak sword chi, it was too strong. Lu Yi could not figure it out. The only thing he was sure of was that the sword chi that chased after Feng Rumo was related to the Merak sword. He wondered how the expert he had met by chance back then was doing now. Lu Yi then asked about the Saint of the Formless Palace. Unfortunately, although Ma Bin knew about the Formless Palace, he did not know much about it. Therefore, he did not know much about the Saint of the Formless Palace. Now that Yaya was on the run, Lu Yi didn't even know where to find her. But since she had chosen to unseal her strength and memories, she should have a way to deal with it. One day later, the three-world island was bustling with activity. Many island masters of the spiritual islands gathered on the three-world island. Under Tang Jun's leadership, the transfer of resources officially began. As for how much resources each spiritual island had lost and what they had lost, it was all calculated by themselves. Of course, there would be some people who would take the opportunity to exaggerate and take advantage of the situation. However, the three-world island did not have the means to verify this. Furthermore, Tang Jun had already expected this and did not care too much about it. As long as it was not too excessive, he would turn a blind eye to it. This was because the harvest this time was simply too great. The entire Vientiane Trade Union and Violet Jade Island's resources had all been given to the three-world island. In a grateful atmosphere, the transfer of resources was carried out smoothly. The island masters of the spiritual islands were not stingy with their praises. Tang Jun responded with a smile. Although they were grateful that the three-world island had returned the looted resources, no matter which spiritual island it was, they merely expressed their gratitude. No one would easily acknowledge the three-world island's rule over the Vientiane Sea. At this time, in Lu Ye's attic, he was sitting opposite Tao Wu. Just 2 hours ago, Tao Wu came uninvited. He had a good relationship with Lu Yi. Even though Lu Yi had advanced to Rizhao, they did not feel unfamiliar with each other. Tao Wu came to look for him at this time. Naturally, it was not as simple as just visiting. The old man said that the major forces were willing to let the Vientiane galaxy rule over the Vientiane Sea mainly because the Vientiane Sea is located in this galaxy. The Vientiane galaxy has a natural advantage and its overall strength is not bad. Therefore, for so many years, everyone was willing to abide by the rules of the Vientiane Sea. If the major forces really wanted to get their hands on a treasure land like the Vientiane Sea, would the local galaxy be able to stop them? There was a high chance that they would not. However, if everyone wanted to get their hands on the Vientiane Sea, it would definitely be a chaotic battle in the end. No one would be able to gain an advantage. It was because of this mutual restraint that no one could stand out. The local galaxy had a natural advantage and their overall strength was not bad. It was natural for them to rule over the Vientiane Sea. The old man he mentioned was a veteran from the five-color domain, Rizhao Ri. After the incident at the Vientiane Sea, he rushed over immediately. However, like Ri from the other galaxies, this elite from the five-color domain did not enter the Vientiane Sea. Instead, he stayed outside. Now that the three-world island wants to take over the Vientiane Sea, they have to show that they have enough strength to deter others from coveting it. Tao Wu said. Obviously, he did not say this, but conveyed the message of Ri from the five-color domain. This was undoubtedly a kind of guidance. No matter what, the relationship between the three-world island and the five-color island was obvious. Was the previous battle not enough? Lu Yi asked. First, they had forced the Formless Palace to retreat. Then, they had defeated Ri from the Vientiane galaxy. In that battle, 7 Ri had died. This kind of deterrence was not enough. Tao Wu said helplessly, after all, that battle did not happen right under their noses. To them, everything is just hearsay. Also, to be honest, the current foundation of the three-world island is a little weak. The number of Ri that the three-world island had shown to the outside world was only 4. Moreover, whether it was Lu Yi, Luan Xiaoa, or Yen Miao, they had all just become Ri not long ago. Ma Bin had been famous for a long time, but it was no secret that he was heavily injured. At this stage, it was difficult for him to be a deterrent. Of course, the reputation of the golden light-type treasure had spread far and wide. Everyone knew that the three-world island had a strange golden light-type treasure that could seal off sunlight. But for those top realms, who didn't have a golden light-type treasure? Without a treasure, the three-world island was nothing in the eyes of the top forces. A heavily injured Ma Bin was not enough to hold up the fort. Lu Yi understood. So they want to see the foundation of the three-world island with their own eyes? Tao Wu nodded. That's the gist of it. If the three-world island could display a strong enough foundation, it would not be difficult for them to control the Wanxiang Sea. However, if they couldn't, then there would definitely be changes. What do they want to see? Lu Yi asked. I don't know. Tao Wu shrugged. But the old man said that we should be able to see the results soon. While the two were talking, Lu Yi suddenly turned his head and looked in a certain direction. So that's how it is. He had sensed that Ri's aura had entered the Wanxiang Sea. However, judging from the other party's route, he was not coming to the three-world island. He was going somewhere else. This was a blatant provocation. At the same time, Tao Wu had obviously received the message. He quickly checked the sound talisman and looked up at Lu Yi. Shen Yun of the winged sky planet, Peak Ri. He has the heavenly Luo umbrella and is invulnerable. The old man said that he and Gu Shi of the Tianyan field became sworn brothers when they were young. He is not here with good intentions. Lu Ye's interest was piqued. Heavenly Luo umbrella? The winged sky planet was also a top realm. Shen Yun came from the winged sky planet and was a peak Ri cultivator. With a treasure like the heavenly Luo umbrella, there was no place he could not go in this vast galaxy. Furthermore, the heavenly Luo umbrella sounded like it was used for defense. No wonder he dared to enter the Wanxiang Sea so openly. He obviously had something to rely on. He and the dead Gu Shi were sworn brothers when they were young. It was no secret that Gu Shi died at Lu Ye's hands. Although no one saw the process, Lu Yi could kill 2 Ri from the Formless Palace. What was killing Gu Shi? Not only Gu Shi, but Yuan Du and Chen Xuanba's deaths were also related to him. Many Ri knew this. I'm going out. Lu Yi stood up. Be careful. Tao Wu could not help but be a little worried. Although Lu Ye's performance in the previous battle was shocking, it was mostly because of the power of his attribute treasure. Now that God Cloud had come prepared, if Lu Ye's attribute treasure could not be used, with his newly ascended cultivation, he would definitely not be God Cloud's opponent. Once Lu Yi was defeated, it would be a joke for the three-world island to control the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi nodded and left the pavilion. He rushed into the sky, not bothering to hide his Ri aura. At this moment, many pairs of eyes looked over from the periphery of the Wanxiang Sea. Spiritual wills flew back and forth. Obviously, they all knew that the time to decide the future of the Wanxiang Sea had come. Shen Yun was an old man with a malicious expression. Despite being a peak Ri cultivator, he still looked so old. It was obvious that he was too old. He had been famous for many years and had obtained the heavenly Luo umbrella by chance in his early years. Since then, no one in this world could threaten him. When the news of the Wanxiang Sea spread, he immediately realized that this was a good opportunity for the Winged Sky Star to control the Wanxiang Sea. As for the Three-World Island, he did not care about them at all. There were different levels of treasures. It was not that he had not seen the power of other treasures, but he had never seen a treasure that could break through the protection of the heavenly Luo umbrella. He could feel that many Rizhao recultivators were watching from the periphery of the Wanxiang Sea, but it did not affect him. The Wanxiang Sea was currently in a masterless state. Naturally, he had to make the first move. Those people who claimed to be cautious and wise had actually missed a good opportunity. What a joke! Just as he was heading towards the Winged Sky Island, he suddenly felt a spiritual will land on him. God Cloud snorted coldly and turned his head to look in the direction where the spiritual sense came from. He could vaguely see a figure rushing towards him from that direction. This made him very unhappy because the other party's brazen act of using spiritual sense to investigate was a provocation to him. Lu Yi of the Three-World Island? Shen Yun immediately determined the other party's identity. At this time, only the Three-World Island would come looking for him. End of chapter. Chapter 2003. Sensing carefully, God Cloud realized that Lu Yi of the Three-World Island had just ascended to Rizhao, and his aura was not stable yet. In the eyes of ordinary cultivators, Rizhao was high and mighty, but in front of God Cloud, who was at the peak of Rizhao, a newly ascended Rizhao was nothing. The Wanxiang Sea was a land of treasures. No matter who occupied it, it would be of great help to their own development. It was not that no one had thought about it before, it was just that there was no suitable opportunity. However, with the invasion of the Formless Palace and the chaos in the Wanxiang Sea, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. God Cloud looked at Lu Yi, who was quickly approaching him, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Did he really think that those Rizhao who were fooling around outside did not come in because they were afraid of the treasures of the Three-World Island? If that was really the case, then the Three-World Island was too naive. As far as he knew, he was not the only Rizhao who came to the Wanxiang Sea with treasures. There were at least 4 of them. He also knew that some Rizhao had secretly reached an agreement to divide the Wanxiang Sea. When the balance that had been maintained for tens of thousands of years or even longer was broken, naturally many people would have their own ideas. However, because no one wanted to be the first to stand out, everyone stayed outside. Only he, Shen Yun, was not afraid at all, or rather, he had enough confidence. He did not have any objections to dividing the 10,000 Elephant Sea, but since he was the one who stood out, he wanted the biggest piece of land and the most benefits. He knew that at this moment, all the Rizhao who came from outside were paying attention to what was happening here. If that was the case, God Cloud's eyes flashed fiercely, and a murderous look appeared on his face. Most of the treasures were precious and rare. Only a few were owned by a single cultivator. A golden light treasure like the one on the Three-World Island that could seal a Rizhao's cultivation had never appeared before. Even if its quality was not as good as the heavenly Luo umbrella, it was still a treasure. Who would not covet it? In fact, from the perspective of the Rizhao, the value of the treasure was even higher than the Wanxiang Sea. God Cloud had the heavenly Luo umbrella, but he did not mind having another treasure. With 2 great treasures, one for offense and one for defense, who in the universe could defeat him? He believed that he was not the only one who wanted to take the treasures of the Three-World Island. He had to end this quickly. His figure blurred, and he went straight towards Lu Yi, calling out, "Are you fellow Taoist Lu Yi of the Three-Realm Island?" Hearing his shout, Lu Yi did not respond. He only frowned and looked at God Cloud, who was quickly approaching him. After getting some information from Tao Wu, he thought that God Cloud was here to test his abilities and see if the Three-World Island was qualified to control the Wanxiang Sea. If that was the case, he only needed to defeat Shen Yun. Regardless of whether he and Gu Shi were sworn brothers or not, God Cloud came from a top domain like the Winged Sky Star. If it was not necessary, Lu Yi did not want to become enemies with him. Hence, his original plan was to come over and greet God Cloud. After that, they would have a match and let the Rizhao people who were watching from the outside witness the power of the treasure money's golden light. But now, God Cloud shouted from afar. He seemed to be very enthusiastic, but Lu Yi was sharp enough to detect a trace of killing intent. This old bastard wants to kill me. After realizing this, Lu Ye's expression suddenly turned cold and boundless killing intent grew in his heart. If you want to kill me, then I'll kill you first. That's right. Lu Yi shouted. He did not slow down. The two figures tacitly approached each other, their powers surging. In the next moment, God Cloud shouted, Junior, you're too arrogant. How dare you kill my sworn brother, Gushi? Today, I'll take your life and let you know that there's always someone better than you. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand and a small pitch-black umbrella appeared. The small umbrella spun above his head and disappeared in a flash, leaving behind layers of light to protect his body. Before he came, he had clearly investigated the golden light treasure. He knew that once the golden light was activated, it would be hard to defend against it. Hence, he did not hesitate to use his Tian Luo umbrella to protect his body and ensure that he was in an invincible position. The only thing that could fight against a treasure was a treasure. Although he was at the peak of the Rizhao realm, he would not joke around with his life, especially after revealing his evil intentions. Almost at the same time he used his Tian Luo umbrella, he saw a golden light appear beside Lu Yi. Looking over, he immediately saw that the source of the golden light came from a strange toad-like beast on Lu Ye's shoulder. He understood in his heart that it was indeed as the information he had obtained indicated. The true form of the golden light attribute treasure was a living creature. Although it was a little strange, all treasures existed in different forms, so there was nothing strange about living creatures. The golden light bloomed and turned into a ray of light that shot towards God Cloud. God Cloud was already prepared. His body moved continuously in an attempt to dodge. However, no matter what he did, it was useless. The golden light still hit his body. Was it a characteristic that could not be avoided once it was locked on? God Cloud could not help but raise his eyebrows. He had never seen such a treasure before. However, if this treasure had such a characteristic, then its value would undoubtedly be even greater. When the golden light covered his body, God Cloud was still calm. He did not think that there was any treasure in this world that could break through the protection of his Tian Luo umbrella. In the past, he had fought many people who had treasures. However, under the protection of his Tian Luo umbrella, he was always safe and sound. However, in the next moment, his expression changed. Originally, under the protection of the heavenly Luo umbrella, there were layers of multicolored light flowing on the surface of his body. However, at this moment, the flowing multicolored light was rapidly solidifying, and the color of the multicolored light was rapidly transforming into a golden light. In the blink of an eye, his body was covered by the golden light. As the golden light flowed, the mark of an ancient coin could be seen. Kacha, the sound of something breaking could be heard. God Cloud was shocked. This was because the thing that broke was the protection of his Tian Luo umbrella. This was something that had never happened before. In his shock, he instinctively wanted to escape. However, something even more shocking happened. His peak sunshine realm mana and blood were all solidified. He finally knew what happened to the Sunshine Realm cultivators who were killed by Lu Yi of the Three-World Island. His heart trembled. A thought that made his hair stand on end rose in his heart. That golden light was not the power of a treasure. It was a treasure, a true starry sky treasure. Because only the power of a treasure could break through the protection of his Tian Luo umbrella so easily. No other treasure could have such power. How could it be a treasure? God Cloud's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He could not understand how there could be someone in this world who could control the power of a treasure. Furthermore, in this day and age, there was still someone who could obtain a treasure. Rumors were harmful. All the information that he received all indicated that Lu Yi of the Three-World Island was in control of a treasure. Therefore, he came with full confidence. He originally thought that it was a good opportunity to seize the Wanxiang Sea and steal the treasure. Who would have thought that this would happen? As his body fell downwards, the deep seawater entered his vision. Shen Yun's heart was filled with fear. Of course, he knew about the terrifying corrosion of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Now that the protection of the heavenly Luo umbrella had been broken, once he fell into the sea, he would definitely die. Suddenly his scalp tightened. His falling body stopped in midair. He calmed himself down and realized that someone was grabbing his hair. The person who was grabbing him was undoubtedly Lu Yi. At such a close distance, their eyes met. God Cloud could clearly see the undisguised murderous intent in Lu Ye's eyes. At this moment, the person standing in front of him was not a person, but a ferocious beast that was about to devour him. Under his survival instincts, the power of his soul surged and he activated his secret technique. Lu Ye's body swayed slightly. He shook his head vigorously. His soul was unstable, but it was not a big deal. God Cloud was dumbfounded. His soul power was at the peak of the Sunshine Realm. When he was in danger, even cultivators of the same level would not dare to underestimate him. How could a newly ascended Sunshine Realm cultivator withstand it? 1-2. Lu Yi opened his mouth. His eyelids drooped slightly. His expression was extremely sinister. At the same time, his other hand slowly pulled out the Pan Shan blade. Why did you all come? Under God Cloud's fearful gaze, the Pan Shan blade pierced his chest. He wanted to beg for mercy, but he could not open his mouth. You forced me. The long blade pierced through his body. His blood circulation was sealed. With the strength of his physical body, God Cloud could not withstand the sharpness of the Pan Shan blade. God Cloud felt a piercing pain. Blood flowed out of his mouth and nose. What made him even more fearful was that Lu Ye's body was trembling slightly, as if he was trying his best to suppress something. Under that ferocious expression, there was an explosion of extreme malice. Die! Lu Yi roared angrily. His mana surged, and God Cloud's body, which was pierced by the long blade, exploded. He did not dare to delay any longer. He was afraid that he would not be able to resist the urge to devour God Cloud. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. A peak-level Sunshine Realm cultivator had died without a trace. Only a few storage rings that he carried with him were scattered all over the place. Among the storage rings, there was a small, palm-sized black umbrella. Lu Yi suddenly regained his senses. He reached out his hand and grabbed the storage rings and the small black umbrella. He did not have the time to check carefully. He looked around coldly. Using his mana, his voice spread in all directions. The three-world island wants to control the Wanxiang Sea. Does anyone have any objections? Come out and speak. There was no response. After waiting for 10 breaths, Lu Ye's voice rang out again. Since no one has any objections, then follow the rules obediently. Whoever dares to cause trouble in the Wanxiang Sea will be killed by the three-world island. With a cold snort, he turned around and returned to the three-world island. He slowly calmed down the killing intent in his heart. When he left the three-world island, he did not want to kill God Cloud. He thought that it was just a test from the various factions. Therefore, he only wanted to have a simple battle. However, he did not want to kill anyone. He could not stop others from wanting to kill him. Since that was the case, he could only kill them. He believed that after this battle, no one would dare to cause trouble in the Wanxiang Sea. End of chapter. Chapter 2004. The battle between the Sunshine experts started suddenly and ended quickly. The price to pay was the silent death of a peak Sunshine expert. Outside the Wanxiang Sea, many figures stood there with different expressions. Some were frowning, some were surprised, some were gloating, and some were shocked. Many Sunshine experts came from different galaxies and realms. They gathered here and did not enter the Wanxiang Sea because they did not want to have any conflict with the three-world island. They were also waiting. In such a situation, there would definitely be people who would not be able to hold themselves back and test the waters. They were all Sunshine experts who had been famous for many years. They had patience and shrewdness. The three-world island had declared that they wanted to control the Wanxiang Sea. However, how could such a huge matter be decided by one person? Anyone who wanted to control such a precious land would have to get their approval. If the three-world island was a top realm, it would be fine. However, the three-world island was not. Furthermore, they did not have a strong foundation. Under such circumstances, even if the three-world island wanted to take control of the Wanxiang Sea with their strength from the previous battle, they would have to pay a huge price. It could even be said that they might not even be able to take control of the Wanxiang Sea under the current circumstances. Just as they expected, someone had entered the Wanxiang Sea. Furthermore, it was God Cloud from the winged sky star. God Cloud relied on the protection of the heavenly Luo umbrella and was used to being lawless. In the entire galaxy, he had a fierce reputation and was one of the most dangerous people in the world to provoke. This was because once someone fought with him, if they could not break through his protection, he would be in an invincible position. Such an expert had come to the Wanxiang Sea but did not report to the three-world island. Everyone was looking forward to what would happen next. They had sensed that Lu Yi had made his move, and had also sensed the conflict between God Cloud and Lu Yi as they had wished. However, the result was shocking. In just one exchange, God Cloud's aura was destroyed. Following that, Lu Ye's voice resounded throughout the Wanxiang Sea. Because it was too far away, no one could see the details of the fight between Lu Yi and God Cloud. They only knew one thing: God Cloud was dead. He died at the hands of the newly promoted sunshine expert, Lu Yi of the three-world island. After a moment of silence, spiritual wills suddenly surged. Could it be that God Cloud did not manage to use the heavenly Luo umbrella in time? Someone asked in bewilderment, because this was the only possibility that could explain why Shen Yun had fallen so quickly. No, God Cloud is such a sly old fox. He has always been cautious. Facing an opponent who also has a spiritual treasure, it is impossible for him not to use the Tian Luo umbrella. That's right. Moreover, it was God Cloud who initiated the fight just now. Based on my understanding of him, he must have used the Tian Luo umbrella to protect himself. But with the protection of the Tian Luo umbrella, how could he still die? How could that golden light-type treasure be so powerful? Which supreme treasure does this belong to? No matter which treasure it is, its power has already reached an unfathomable level. Lu Yi of the three-world island will definitely become famous in the starry sky after today. No one will dare to underestimate him anymore. However, this brat is too hot-tempered. God Cloud actually killed him just like that. Did he not think that he would offend the winged sky star because of this? Has he not offended enough top forces? Zi Xian has a huge grudge against him. Previously, he even killed a few Rizhao from the Formless Palace. Moreover, since he dared to take in the Green Demon King Ma Bin, it undoubtedly shows that he is not someone who is afraid of trouble. That's true. Ma Bin's scary part is that he appears and disappears unpredictably. Now that he is severely injured and has appeared in the three-world island, I'm afraid that many people will come looking for trouble with him. Other things aside, the Wanxiang galaxy itself will not let him off easily. That brother Chang Feng has been tracking his whereabouts ever since the battle at the Azura field. I think he will return in a few days. A group of Rizhao's spiritual wills conversed. Suddenly, someone said, "Everyone, have you not thought of a possibility?" Everyone looked towards the source of the voice. Someone asked curiously, "What possibility?" To be able to break the Tian Luo umbrella's spiritual treasure protection so easily, the essence of the golden light in the three-world island? Is it really a spiritual treasure? If it is not a spiritual treasure, what else can it be? The person who spoke had a leisurely expression and a deep gaze. Many Rizhao immediately reacted and inhaled a breath of cold air. That's right, everyone had assumed that the essence of the golden light was the power of a spiritual treasure. However, if it was a spiritual treasure, then it should not have been able to break the Tian Luo umbrella so easily. However, if it was a spiritual treasure, then it was too shocking. After a long period of silence, someone finally spoke. The battle of the 10,000 Elephant Sea has come to an end. It's time for us to visit the owner of the three-world island. As for whether the golden light is a treasure or, perhaps we can ask him face to face. Although it was inappropriate to do so, If this matter was not clarified, none of the Rizhao present would be able to feel at ease. On the three-world island, Lu Yi returned. He adjusted his breathing for a while and suppressed the chaotic emotions in his heart. He had to quickly think of a way to deal with the black fruit on the talent tree. Otherwise, it would easily affect him in future battles, just like this time when he fought against Xin Yun. Fortunately, he already had some ideas. Just as he was about to give it a try, he suddenly raised his head and looked in a certain direction. With a thought, he transmitted his voice and stood up. After a short while, Lu Yi stood in the air outside the three-world island. Wan Xiao and Yan Miao followed closely behind him. From afar, a stream of light was rapidly approaching them. The power of the Rizhao filled the air. Wan Xiao and Yan Miao's expressions were a little nervous. This was because the number of Rizhao who came this time was quite large. There were about 10 of them. Obviously, they were all from the forces behind the various spiritual islands. Moreover, many of the Rizhao's aura was extremely profound. It was obvious that they were not ordinary people. They secretly looked at Lu Yi and realized that his expression was normal. He had the attitude of a host and was calm and collected. The two ladies were affected by his calmness. They looked at each other and gradually calmed down. Sui Lin from the five-color territory is here to visit. Please forgive us if we have disturbed you. Before the person arrived, a clear voice could be heard from afar. It was the old man that Ding Dang mentioned. The old man was not old. He was full of energy. His vigorous aura showed that he was not a mediocre person in the Rizhao. As the only force behind the five-color island that had a good relationship with the three-world island, Sui Lin taking the lead to speak was undoubtedly a good start for the meeting with the Rizhao. Following his words, voices could be heard one after another. 10,000 Devil Su Lan is here to visit. Northern Underworld Kuei Hua is here to visit. Yellow Dragon Territories Gu Tai. One by one, the Rizhaos introduced themselves. They were all well-known names in the starry sky. Especially the first few Rizhao who came from the top realms, they were especially important. Other than the Rizhao who came from the top forces, the Rizhao who introduced themselves were also existences that could not be underestimated. Behind each of them, there was a strong force. If it was on a normal day, these experts and ordinary cultivators would not be able to see them. However, today, they appeared in groups as if they were free. Lu Yi was humble and polite. He returned their greetings one by one and carefully memorized their faces and names. Now that he was in the Rizhao level, he would be dealing with this group of people in the future. Many of the Rizhaos secretly observed him. Seeing that he responded well, they could not help but secretly nod their heads. You have all come from afar. Your presence brings light to the three-world island. Please come in. I have already ordered people to prepare a banquet to welcome you all. Well said, well said. After a short while, in a palace where the cultivators of the three-world island were stationed, Lu Yi sat at the head of the table. Below him, the Rizhaos from the top forces were seated on either side of him. All kinds of spiritual fruits and wine were served one after another. Everyone was chatting and laughing. The scene was harmonious. Regardless of whether it was Lu Yi or the Rizhaos who came, they all knew one thing clearly. They were willing to visit the three-world island at this time as guests. This meant that they had acknowledged the three-world island's rule and jurisdiction over the Wanxiang Sea. Those who did not, such as Xin Yun, had already turned into ashes. Under the suppression of absolute power, all the Rizhaos understood that the three-world island had the ability and qualifications to oversee the Wanxiang Sea. Since that was the case, there was nothing to nitpick about. Perhaps some of them were unwilling, but with Shen Yun's example, they naturally would not show their faces at this time. Now that everyone was sitting here, there was only one thing to discuss, and that was their own interests in the future. It was undeniable that the Wanxiang Sea had existed for so many years and had brought great benefits to all the major forces present. Especially after occupying the spiritual island, the cultivators of their respective forces could stay in the spiritual island and improve their cultivation speed and efficiency. This would undoubtedly speed up the growth of the cultivators of their respective forces. Moreover, having such a place where they could trade with each other was a great benefit to any force. This was because every realm and galaxy had their own specialties. These specialties might not be worth much in their own realm, but to other realms and galaxies, they were very precious and rare items. Through such transactions, there was no doubt that they would gain a greater value. However, everyone was old and experienced, so no one brought up this topic at the beginning. They only made small talk. Gu Tai of the Yellow Dragon realm took this opportunity to get closer to Lu Yi. This was because after the Azura field closed, Gu Sheng had returned to the Yellow Dragon realm and mentioned Lu Ye's name to him. "The friend that Gu Sheng mentioned, you must be my friend, right?" Gu Tai asked with a smile. Lu Yi said, "That's right. I did go to the Azura field before. I had a good chat with Gu Sheng there. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Gu Tai sighed. In the current Yellow Dragon realm, Gu Sheng was undoubtedly the one with the strongest aptitude. However, even Gu Sheng was now in seclusion. It was still uncertain whether he could successfully advance to the Sunshine level. Looking at Lu Yi, not only had he advanced to the Sunshine level, he had also caused such a big incident. Today, he was sitting here as if they were equals. In comparison, Gu Sheng, who the Yellow Dragon realm had high hopes for, was obviously inferior. "How is Gu Sheng now?" Lu Yi asked. He felt a little guilty towards Gu Sheng and Abdullah. This was because the three of them had agreed to explore the secret of the Azura field in a scene. In the end, he was taken away by the heavenly Azura tribe. After that, it was not convenient for him to continue contacting the two of them. They did not meet again until the Azura field closed. End of chapter. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.